tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it?
You'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it is a Tuesday morning. It is the 18th of June, and this is Eamonn and Isabel with GB News Breakfast.
Good morning, welcome to the programme. Leading for us today, as they continue to slide in the polls, Conservatives are turning to Boris Johnson to fight the threat of reform and Farage.
Labour pledges to bring banking back to the high street with the promise of 350 so-called banking hubs over 5 years.
And as the Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves promises to renegotiate Brexit, we'll be debating whether we should be boosting ties with our European partners.
Racing's glitziest festival begins today. It's Royal Ascot. But is an ongoing drugs problem with spectators ruining the atmosphere?
And in other sport, Kylian Mbappe breaks his nose as France beat Austria. Slovakia provide the Euro's biggest shock ever by beating the Belgians thanks to the snickometer. More about the snickometer later. And after choking at the US Open, Rory McIlroy's decided to take 3 weeks off.
Finally, some signs of summer. Not particularly warm today, but most places dry and bright. We will see a few showers, especially across the north. Many places seeing sunny spells tomorrow as well, and temperatures just ticking up a little this week. Join me later for a full forecast.
"16 days now until Election Day, and today is the final day to register to vote and have your say.
And on the campaign, farming is on the agenda for Conservatives. They're warning of cuts to agricultural tax relief as they turn to Boris Johnson to fight the threat of Nigel Farage.
Labour has promised to bring banking back to the high street as they pledge to create what are called banking hubs, 350 of them over the next 5 years.
Liberal Democrats are focusing again on water as they've pledged £10 million per year to increase the number of water inspections. to clamp down on sewage dumping water firms.
And it was a big day with Reform yesterday announcing its contract with the people. Let's take a look back at what our politicians got up to.
Our central focus and mission, if we come into government, will be on growing the economy and making sure that we're creating the wealth that this country needs. We've got brilliant skills. We've seen some of that at the port here, and that will make sure that everybody is better off.
This is the Tory manifesto, utterly shredded by Jeremy Hunt.
There's still 2.5 weeks to go in this election. I'm fighting hard for every vote because I believe we can win. And there's a very clear choice at this election. It's having your taxes cut by the Conservatives or facing significant tax rises with the Labour Party.
And in our costings we published when we launched our manifesto, we had many ways we were raising the money. One of the big ways is through tackling tax avoidance. We're going to invest £1 billion a year in the tax authorities so they can raise £7 billion. They reckon they can raise more than that, but that's what we put in.
We know what we're for. We're for controlled borders, we're for promoting genuine economic growth, we're for helping the little guy. We're about trying to restore some trust in politics.
Right, let's look back on all of that with Deputy Political Editor at the Mail on Sunday, Anna Mikalova. Lovely to see you, Anna. Yesterday was Nigel Farage's big day, and his manifesto, or lack of a manifesto, was the talking point. What was in his manifesto that isn't a manifesto?
A lot of red meat was what was in his manifesto, non-manifesto. Nigel Farage has launched his, effectively, wish list for what he says he would do. He's quite open about the fact that he's not going to be in government this time round. But, I mean, he has set his sights on being Prime Minister in 2029. So it's essentially a marker for what he'll do in the Commons and what his party will, where his party will effectively push the agenda. Yeah,
well, yesterday where they held their news conference to launch, but they weren't launching the manifesto, in quite a rundown leisure centre in Wales, which was quite deliberate and giving what sort of message do you think?
Well, the message, I mean, the location was a Labour heartlands location, and it's an interesting shift from the Reform campaign, because previously they were only focusing on unseating the Conservative Party, and now it looks like they're getting quite confident about their position in the polls, and they're actually starting to target Labour. I mean, I know from speaking to very nervous Conservative candidates that the fear for them with Reform is not just Reform taking Conservative voters, but also it's where they take Labour votes as well, and that's where they will come in through either second or even first.
I mean, Anna, it's interesting, isn't it, looking at what they were proposing yesterday. It really is the definition of populism.
That's great.
Stuff that everybody wants to see, increased spending, tax cuts for everyone, but does it in a way just engender and foster dissatisfaction. It's undeliverable. It reminds people of what we all want but we can't really have, and is therefore part of the problem and part of the reason why people are saying Farage entering into this race at this point is the return of chaos to politics. Is that fair?
No, I don't think it is the return to chaos. I think actually it's perfectly normal and understandable for a small party like this to have this kind of wish list. I mean, look at the Greens, look at the Lib Dems, even.
Even the Conservatives, to be perfectly frank, with their 13 billion, whatever it is that they want to...
That's a whole other story.
Yeah,
I mean, the Conservatives are acting like, and they've called themselves the underdog. They are saying, we are the underdog in this race. It is extraordinary to have a serving government say that. But Reform doing this, you know, these parties do serve a purpose in bringing in new ideas and setting the agenda. And we've already seen some, I think Wes Streeting on the weekend said that there's some things from the Lib Dem manifesto he'd pick out. So this is very significant in the sense that there will be Conservatives looking at this and saying, right, this is where our party should be heading to. And there already are.
And meanwhile, Boris Johnson being leaned on by the Conservatives, he's just lent his signature to a series of letters that are being sent up to the Red Wall. He's not out on the campaign trail. He's not really putting his full heft behind the Conservatives. Does that speak perhaps to his relationship with the party or his relationship with Sunak? And, you know, does Nigel Farage need to worry about Boris Johnson further down the line? Because it seems a lot of the conversation now is actually about not this election, but what Farage will do after the election?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of people in the Conservative Party, a lot of candidates who say the only person who could take on Farage is Boris Johnson. I mean, both of them have that populist appeal, that name recognition. And I think what we've seen Boris Johnson do is sort of what he's been saying he's been doing. So he'll write letters and do videos for candidates who ask him. So his line is, I'll help anyone who asks me. But, yeah, he's not out and about. He's not on a bus this time around.
But if, as Isabel is saying, the manifesto pledges are undeliverable, I don't know if they are or not. What I applaud Reform for is thinking outside the box and actually going places that other people aren't going and what they're talking about. So how undeliverable are those promises?
I mean, the tax cuts go further than Liz Truss. So I think that, you know, it's very hard to see the markets. The city won't like it. There are certain things in there. I mean, net zero migration, very few people think that's actually doable. Things like... But equally, they're throwing things into the mix that even certain Conservatives have been talking about. So they talk about scrapping or cutting significantly the foreign aid budget to free up billions. I mean, that's something...
Well, who's going to object to that?
That's something Robert Jenrick proposed with us a few months ago. He was ignored by number 10. So there are things in there that I know Conservatives will look at and say, right, we want this. Why isn't our party doing it? Why is
you see, the foreign aid budget, I find amazing. I think that is a vote winner. That the people, nobody's going to object to that. And I know Isabel's looking at me and saying, yes, all the caring, bleeding heart people.
No, well, you know, look, all I'm doing is putting the opposite view and playing devil's advocate. But some people who would defend the foreign aid budget would say a huge part of the problem that we have with migration is because there are problems in these countries at source, and the foreign aid budget goes some way to not only preventing war...
Well, why do we even waste our time to debate?
Well, because otherwise then they all want to come and live here. So arguably, if you can make life better there, it's money well spent. That's the argument. But a 50% cut in foreign aid is what they're proposing, which is a huge chunk and would take us well below any of our international peers, I presume.
Who cares? Who cares? Nobody cares.
And I think the people who back it say there is some good work being done, but there's also a huge amount of waste. And, you know, you get those anecdotal examples of us funding...
Well, corruption. A huge amount of problems with corruption as well.
But at the same time, yeah, I think a lot of people would say, take that money, put it in a tax cut for working people.
It's interesting when we look at, I suppose what I was alluding to about reform was that at least there are exciting proposals coming forward from them. You look at Labour, nailed-on favourites for this. Nothing exciting from anything that they're proposing. They're playing it very, very safe. The Conservatives, as you say, have to come and see more small party, make big promises about things. Who has caught your eye, and does it matter if their proposals are exciting or not?
Well,
I mean, you can look at the Conservatives and you can say, well, you've had the ball for 14 years or so and done nothing with it.
Exactly. I think, I mean, all I can say is the main complaint with Rishi Sunak and where he's taken this party is people say, right, you know, you've got all this opportunity and you've had all this opportunity to bring in loads of ideas and revamp, and all you've done is talk about banning smoking and doing maths for 18-year-olds. I mean, that gets repeated all the time from people who are unhappy with the party. So when they look at things like the tax cuts in Reform's budget manifesto, like I mean, it's mostly language on immigration, but certainly that statement of intent, they will say they're and you know, there are things in there as well. I mean, it shows Nigel Farage's links to the city and his past experience, because there are
Richard Tice's financial background,
and the company they keep,
it was very
company they keep
beneficial to people who are wealthy, to be perfectly frank, which I think is fascinating when they're launching it in Merthyr Tydfil and they're talking about, you know, scrapping inheritance tax under £2 million and increasing the.
But there are also some interesting things, seemingly interesting things in there about how to free up that money by, for example, not allowing central banks to charge interest. Like there are some banking proposals that I found quite curious, that I'm not a banker qualified to be able to say whether or not they're workable, but they certainly sound interesting. And I think that's what people want. And that's certainly what they would have wanted from the Labour manifesto, which is just, you know, please, please, please don't take away our poll lead. Please, 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 just give us a chance. I don't blame them, but it's effective, but it's not inspiring.
Right. Well, what would be inspiring? Anna, I know you're going to come back and we'll talk again later on, and we'll talk about what is inspiring to you. What would you like to see in these manifestos? What are they not talking about that would affect you? What would win your vote? If you're undecided and you think, well, that would get me to vote for that particular party, what is it? Or do you just vote tactically? Let us know what you think about all of that. gbnews.com/your say. Get in touch, have your say, and we'll reflect that throughout the programme.
And as ever, every morning, we are hearing from different people up and down the country with their take on the country's politics and the direction of travel. Today, it's Sian Astley, who's from Greater Manchester.
Hi, I'm Sian Astley and I live in South Manchester. So the most important issue for me in the upcoming general election is that the next government sort out and get stability in housing, property and the economy. I work as a landlord and I have done for 25 years and it's just a mess at the minute. So as a voter in South Manchester, I have floated between the Lib Dems and Labour, and those are your choices in South Manchester. The Conservatives never get in this area, don't stand a chance. On a national level, the Conservatives, for me as a landlord and a property owner, have been unbelievably disappointing. I think they've been disappointing for landlords and tenants, to be honest. They have not got their act together. What they've promised hasn't materialised. They've chopped and changed their mind. They haven't followed through on their promises. They've made it confusing for everybody. So they've been useless, actually, on every front. The problem is, as landlords who had traditionally been supported by the Conservative Party, when Labour get in, you think, oh God, because they talk about rent controls, they talk about the fact that they don't like landlords. Landlords have got a really bad rap, so it makes me really nervous. So it's quite confusing, and I just... Who do you vote for? As somebody that owns property, I really don't know who to vote for because I don't know who will be the worst. And that's not to say I don't know who will be the best, because I don't think either of them will be good.
Well, that's what Sian wants to hear from anyone who she's going to vote for. And in no particular order, anybody who's going to do anything about cleaning up this filthy country, absolutely filthy. It's not a day I don't come into work and I'm looking up side streets, looking at the sides of the roads. And today, it seems to be bin collection day around Shepherd's Bush or whatever, but everybody puts their plastic bags out. The foxes and the birds rip them apart. It's the filthiest day of the week, really, as a result. But nothing is done. Nothing is done about graffiti. Nothing is done about just, I think, waste and litter around the place makes people feel down. And when you feel down and you think the place is all rubbish, the place is going to hell, it is going to hell.
Amen.
Sorry?
We've got to offer positivity in the morning.
No, don't have to offer positivity.
Okay, it's all going to hell. We're all going to hell.
Well, I do believe that, and a lot of people do believe this country is going to hell in a handcart.
Well,
and there's very little that they can do.
You're getting involved with the litter campaign. You can be responsible for turning that around. Yeah. How can people let us know how you can improve your area, whether that means getting involved in a litter picking exercise, whether you want to try and see your area uplifted a little bit. Perhaps we can reframe it that way.
No, don't reframe it that way.
That's how I'm framing it.
It's a government responsibility. And, you know, and also, I mean, people should take a bit of responsibility themselves for that sort of thing. But that was just one aspect I was picking on. If you know, nobody talks about that. Nobody will say, we'll clean the place up and we'll make you feel better and we'll maybe put hanging baskets in the high street or whatever it happens to be. Anyway, we're going to hell in a handcart and the time is 16 minutes past 6.
Well, in an attempt to cheer you up, let's talk about racing's glitziest festival of the year. That is, of course, Royal Ascot, and it begins today.
Well, in recent years, it appears there has been a significant problem with drug use. And we're not talking about amongst the horses here, we're talking amongst the spectators. And sports venues are working alongside police to keep drug dealers out of the race courses. So we sent a reporter to the Epsom Derby to see what could be slipping through the net.
They call it the greatest show on turf, the thrill of the hill. But GB News can reveal, for some racegoers, the horses seemingly aren't enough, and they may be creating their own buzz.
You go in the men's toilets, you know what's going on. There's a bigger queue for the cubicles than there is for the urinals, you know. So it's happening, we all know it's happening.
Surprisingly, I have seen things that you think you wouldn't see, considering that there are sniffer dogs, so yes. Which is, it's just one of those things, unfortunately, doesn't it? You get lots of younger people that are apt to have a good time and they do it in different ways.
Following an article written for The Telegraph by former jockey and trainer Charlie Brooks, where he complained about an influx of young men attracted to the sport by the BBC's Peaky Blinders and subsequent indications of positive tests for cocaine by that newspaper at Aintree's Grand National, GB News decided to carry out our own tests over the two-day Derby Festival at Epsom Downs Racecourse. And we can reveal racing's drug problem is seemingly not just limited to cocaine. Using a surface wipe screening kit which tests for residue left by 10 individual drug groups, we found indications of the presence of several narcotics in Epsom's toilets. Although cocaine was the most prevalent Class A which appeared to be present, our tests also indicated the presence of crystal meth, both drugs with a possible penalty of up to 7 years in prison for their possession. Benzodiazepines, or benzos, also appeared to be present, an opioid often associated with cases of drink spiking and date rape. And we also found indications of drugs used to stave off withdrawal from drugs such as heroin. Buprenorphine was the most common, along with methadone. Although tests like this can only provide at best a preliminary analytical result, 47% indicated at least one controlled substance. Despite our findings, Surrey and Sussex police forces say they arrested just one person for suspected Class A drug possession across the two-day event, suggesting much more needs to be done. A spokesperson for the Jockey Club, which operates Epsom, Aintree and Cheltenham racecourses, said, "We at the Jockey Club are passionate about providing safe and enjoyable experiences for all those who visit our venues, and tens of thousands of people who joined us over the 2 days at Epsom Downs did so while behaving in a considerate and responsible manner. Unfortunately, drug use is an increasing societal problem, and this is something horse racing in Britain has been working hard to combat, with the Jockey Club taking a zero-tolerance approach to illegal substances across all of our racecourses. A range of measures were put in place at Epsom Downs, including detection dogs, bag searches and pat-downs in operation at all entrances, as well as amnesty bins. Anyone found to be attempting to access the site in possession of illegal substances was denied entry and given no refund on their ticket purchases, with such instances also reported to the police. In addition, we would always urge anyone who has reason to suspect any form of antisocial behaviour to contact our teams or police on site as soon as possible. Despite what our findings indicate, there is absolutely no suggestion that any of the people we filmed for this report were doing anything at all illegal or wrong.
It's a wider spread issue. It's not the normal racegoers. If you come to Epsom in 2 months' time, not on Derby Day, it'll be completely different. It's the social side of things which it's going to happen. We just have to know how to deal with it. And it's not the majority. That's what I want to express. It's not the majority. It's the minority.
Ray Addison, GB News.
Thank you for that, Ray. Quite a depressing situation, but that people can't seem to entertain themselves without being drugged to the eyeballs. Maybe, again, another example of why we're going to hell on the handcart.
I tell you what, I don't think it's necessarily unique to racing either. No. I would imagine it's just a cross-section of society in all sports, football, rugby, you name it. Just so happens to be racing season at the moment. But if you have a view on that, let us know, gbnews.com/yoursay.
Indeed, do you do it? Do you do it? I must say I'm one of these people that I never get offered drugs or, you know, people come away and they say, oh, there was drugs here and drugs there. I never see it.
I'm never aware either. It totally passes me by.
I must give out the vibes that don't
I think if you want it, apparently you have to go looking for it. People don't approach you. So I think unless, you know, if you want to try it, you've got to go and ask.
I think what we're dealing with in Ray's report there is people who, you know, set out to do that. That is what they're going to the races for. They're not really going to watch the horses or take part in the whole thing like that, but they like the sociability of it and they drug themselves up to the eyeballs with it. So that's the way society is going. Let us know your views on this and let's bring you up to date with other stories coming into the newsroom on this Tuesday morning.
Well, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has formally ended his 6-person war cabinet. The cross-party group was set up after the attacks of October the 7th as a way of representing national unity. The move was triggered after the centrist opposition leader Benny Gantz left the war cabinet last week in protest over the direction of the war.
10 years on, it looks like the mystery of the lost Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 might finally be solved. Using underwater microphones, British researchers have found a signal that could lead them to the plane's final resting place. It's thought the aircraft ran out of fuel when it crashed into the southern Indian Ocean in 2014. The families of the 239 people who were on board continue to seek answers to one of the world's greatest aviation mysteries.
And Sir Ian McKellen was taken to hospital last night after falling off stage during a performance of Players Kings at the Noel Coward Theatre in London. The 85-year-old acting veteran's playing full staff and fell off stage during a fight scene when he lost his footing. The play's producers have said he was in good spirits and is expected to make a speedy and full recovery. We wish him all the best.
Ian McKellen is an amazing man, 85 years of age, taking part in all that physicality on stage, and you know, great man. He did. Well, you know that thing where you get water thrown around you, buckets. There was this craze throwing cold water.
Oh, the ice challenge, yeah.
Ice challenge. Well, he ice challenged me.
Did he?
Yeah, and he poured the water all over me. It was gruesome, but he seemed to enjoy it very much. Today is the 40th anniversary of one of the most violent clashes in British industrial history.
Yes, this is the Battle of Orgreave. It took place on June the 18th, 1984. It saw striking miners and thousands of police officers clashing at a plant near Rotherham in South Yorkshire. Anna Riley has the story.
Orgreave is now home to thousands. But 40 years ago, the scene here was very different.
Where all these houses are, that was all fields where most of the Battle of Orgreave took place in that area. This part, where the reservoirs are, where the lakes are, was the tip for all the waste. And it was an ideal place to stage the Battle of Orgreave, actually, because it was staged.
The former coking plant was host to one of the most brutal clashes in the miners' strike. Tensions came to a head after Arthur Scargill called for a mass picket here. The National Union of Mine Workers believed if the miners could prevent lorries carrying coke from the plant, the government would be forced to negotiate. Police were prepared. Thousands of officers from different forces carried riot shields and batons, and some on horseback bore down on picketers. Retired South Yorkshire miner David Turton is still haunted by that day.
They all came over the bridge, which is down there, just like lambs to the slaughter, for the want of a phrase. And there were 6,000 police and 40-odd mounted police and police dogs. So they weren't playing, they meant business. What happened was meant and planned. And it was so sad. And when Maggie said, they are trying to replace the rule of law with the rule of the mob, nothing could have been further from the truth. Them 95 who went to court for riot, I don't think any of them 95 had been in a police station before in their lives.
At Renishaw Miners Club in South Yorkshire, the memories of that violent day live on.
I was there at Orgreave, saw innocent people getting trampled on with horses, older than me, who couldn't run, get out of way of things. People getting battered. I still get flashbacks of that now, to this day.
My husband was there that day. There's no weapons on them whatsoever, there's nothing. They just went down there to protest about the jobs. And it was meant to be violent that day. It was Thatcher's way, proving who she were.
You'd have thought people would forget about it after 40 years, but not in these kind of villages, you don't forget.
So for this community, it's important to remember this anniversary.
It's 40 years. And I think back how many of the men aren't here anymore. This was a strike to end all strikes. There will never, ever be another one like it.
In a statement, South Yorkshire Police said it would not be appropriate for the force of today to seek to explain or defend the actions of the force in 1984. We have been very clear about our intent to make as much of the relevant documentation as is possible available to the public. But this is at least 18 months away, and campaigners are still calling for an inquiry into the events at Orgreave. Anna Riley, GB News.
Orgreave plus 40. If you've got a view, let us know this morning.
Now, lots of talk about perhaps, let's whisper it, but perhaps some good weather on the way. Alex Deakin with more.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many, a fine day today. There will be a few showers around, but many places won't see them and stay dry. Also, just a little bit of rain working its way up towards Kent, so we could see some rain here for a time, particularly later this morning. A scattering of showers already across Scotland, and one or two more developing through the day over northern England, perhaps Northern Ireland, maybe down into the Midlands. But I say they'll be somewhat hit and miss. Many places will stay dry, certainly across Wales and southwest England, dry and fine. And here, 21, maybe 22 degrees Celsius. Cooler further north, temperatures struggling a little bit in the teens with the breeze still coming down from the north. Now, the patchy rain across parts of Kent might just graze into parts of East Anglia, should scoot away through the afternoon. So turning brighter here to end the day. Still a few showers scattered across the Midlands, drifting south over northern England as well. Maybe the odd heavy one too. Parts of southern Scotland also susceptible to some heavy showers, but I suspect any showers over Northern Ireland fading pretty quickly. A cool feel though with that breeze across the Northern Isles. Temperatures only 10 or 11 Celsius at best through the afternoon. As we go through the evening and overnight, we should see the showers tending to fade away fairly rapidly through this evening. So some decent clear spells developing. Still a bit of a breeze, bringing a bit more cloud into East Anglia and potentially across into Kent also. But elsewhere, the winds falling fairly light. Some mist and fog is possible. Temperatures will dip down to single figures across the north, double digits, certainly in urban areas further south to start tomorrow. And for most, tomorrow's looking like a fine day. It could start a bit cloudy over the southeast. The cloud will increase across the northwest. A bit of rain likely to trickle in here, but late in the day, again, a small chance of one or two showers, but most places will be fine tomorrow. Some lengthier spells of sunshine, feeling a bit warmer as well. The winds will be lighter and temperatures generally creeping up a little higher, or widely over 20 Celsius across the south. Goodbye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Shape of You singer Ed Sheeran had it all on show when he got locked out of his hotel room starkers. The singer mistook the front door for the toilet door while drunk and ended up stranded without a stitch on. He had to use a napkin to cover his modesty.
Well, at least he had a napkin. My goodness.
Have you ever been locked out of your hotel room?
No, but I know of two people that has happened to.
I got locked in my hotel room.
Well, that's okay.
No, it's not okay. It's not okay because I had to present breakfast television
okay, that's not
at 6
okay.
o'clock. And basically, I went to the door and went to open the door and the handle came off my hand. So not only that, it was a hotel where no one would answer the phone. There was just
one of those
downstairs. So it was one of those, and it was getting closer to 6 o'clock all the time. But eventually they got an engineer man to come up and had to take the door off its hinges, and I got out with a few minutes to spare. That was it.
My goodness me, Ed Sheeran. We should also say he's just topped the chart of the most listened to artist, beating Taylor Swift here in England. So great to see a Brit at the top of the chart. I do love a bit of Ed Sheeran. He's kind of a bit of everything for everyone.
Bit of everything for everyone.
You know.
A bit like our giveaway. Everything for everyone, and you could be in with your chance to win over 16,000 quid. Have a go.
Don't miss out on your chance to win our Summer Spectacular. And have we got a prize for you? First, there's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Got Paul coming in right after the break to talk about all the sports news and whatever's going on at the Euros. He's here with that next.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's Newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
You'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes, she could have said stump. You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel. It's midday. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained. I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back.
You're saying they're only selecting nice comments about what I had to say about rubbish.
Yeah.
See, I'm saying everybody's agreeing with me about the rubbish situation.
Oh, no, the rubbish.
in
I thought you were talking about the
But Isabel would rather say that I'm wrong and the
No, I thought you were
cherry-picking.
talking about the top ones. Anyway.
But I absolutely agree. A lot of you saying, 100% agree with Eamonn. Cities are filthy around this country and a lot of them stink as well. We watch shows like Canal Boat Diary, says Nigel, to see the amount of graffiti and rubbish on our canals alone is disgraceful. Now, canals are so filthy. I look at these around London and you go, why would anybody ever take a valley or whatever in a canal? Absolutely filthy. And why would anybody ever live in a canal boat?
Cheap.
Cheap, damp, wobbly.
Rats.
No, not for me, it has to be said. But anyway, you do your bit there, guys, about the impact of cleaning up. You all do your bit, and there we go. Negative effect litter has. Germany's one of the cleanest countries on the planet, and this is why Germans are responsible for the road or pavement in front of their house and
Same as
business.
the Belgians, yeah.
I can remember my mother going out and cleaning our footpath in front of our home. You wouldn't see people doing that now, scrubbing it and doing that. If rubbish or litter is not removed by 10 a.m, they are fined. Could be a good source of revenue here. There we go. Let's get into the Euros now. Paul Coit. Paul, now,
What do you think of it so far?
So
rubbish.
Well, no. It's fine. Sometimes there's a lot of games you think, oh, who cares? You don't only care about the big ones. And
I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. Yeah.
Well, would you watch it? Would you watch anything that comes on?
Of course, yeah.
No, not me.
Really?
Absolutely not.
So what will you not watch? So if there's a big game...
Croatia, Belgium last night, what do I care?
What would you be watching instead, then?
Coronation Street.
Yo, come on. Really?
I could watch anything, but not that. Not just for the sake.
There was more drama in the France game than there was in Coronation Street. I guarantee you that, sir.
You know, you're right, my friend. And so Kylian Mbappe,
yes,
integral to the French goal.
Yeah.
But also he got his nose out of joint.
He did, well, literally, yeah. I mean, arguably the greatest player in the world at the moment. There was great scenes at the start when he was with the mascots. I mean, it just shows how popular this man is. So he's standing there in the tunnel. The kids are all and nobody wanted to stand next to their player because they wanted to be pictures of him. I mean, this is before he's about to go out, but he was great. You could see he was signing things, which is all very good. There he is there. Now, you can see him holding his nose.
Is he holding it all?
He's actually holding it on. Yes. It's like, you know, my top player's got no nose. How does he smell? I mean, it's like he was integral in the whole game. He crossed for there was the first goal, which was the only goal, which was an own goal. This is France against Austria, for Max Wöber, who scored. So he crossed that ball over. He missed a one-on-one, but then the broken nose. So he's jumped up for a ball, and the way it's worked is like, so you're the defender, I'm Mbappe, I'm going up like that, your shoulder's gone like that, nose straight in there. You know what? I didn't think the shoulder would do much, but that actually, I did feel the pain there for a second.
Yeah.
I think because you gave me a little bit more than I expected.
You've quite a large nose.
I don't. Do I really?
It's quite pointed.
I've got it's not slightly bent, actually.
So you've had it broken?
Yeah. I've been to the hospital once because I'd one of the sides of my nose was blocked. So I went in there and they said, oh, when did you break your nose? And I said, I don't think I've ever broken my nose. But I do remember when I was a kid diving in a swimming pool, banging, and I remember my dad going, go on, son, that's all right, got nothing wrong with that. And I was like, OK, Dad, yeah, I was all right. So, yeah, maybe that's what it is. But so if they say follow your nose, I would be walking in circles for the rest of the day.
Incredible.
Yeah. Me and Mbappe have very similar experiences. So broken nose. Anyway, the thing is he going to be fit for the rest of the Euros? He's actually gone to hospital by the sound of it. Didier Deschamps, who's the manager of France, he was asked how he was doing, and he said he's not doing well. So we will have to see. Yeah. Because there's nothing more painful than a broken nose.
Very uncomfortable, that could be. Now, to talk about food with fans, you're going to have to talk me through this.
Right, now, there's this is pretty worrying. There's something which is going on in the Euros, which is not to be messed around. This is national dish baiting, is what I'm calling it.
Dish baiting?
I think I've got a name for it, dish baiting.
OK.
Now, the first time this happened was Albania fans when they played Italy the other day. Have a look at this. If you think you may be disturbed, look away. But here we go. Albania fans. Look at the Albania fans with spaghetti, breaking it in half in front of the Italians. That's what we think of your food. Look at this.
Oh, no, that's an insult.
It's pretty nasty. And you know what?
What?
It gets worse. So Austria played France, as we just had. Now let's have a look at the Austrian fans going up to the French. No, what have they got? Oh, they've got baguettes. And they're breaking the baguettes in half. Look at the French fans reacting to that. And it's national dish baiting, and hopefully they put an end to this because, quite frankly, it's disgusting and disturbing.
No wonder there's such discord.
I agree.
And people fighting amongst that sort of thing.
What would they do with ours? What British food would they then come up to us? I don't know what the Danes... Danes could be breaking fish and chips in front of our eyes. I can't think of anything worse, quite.
Tell us about Rory McIlroy. So they're the US Open. He comes second, deemed to have thrown it away.
Yeah.
What's he going to do?
Well, he's going to take 3 weeks off. I mean, how this is going to affect Rory, I don't know, because this is just... He choked. Now, this is him in the changing room just afterwards.
He's just watched
He's just walked in... And you just see the disappointment in his face. He led by 2, 4 to play, missed 2 3-footers. He was criticised by leaving early because he got on a plane, he walked away from the golf course, get on a plane, let's get out of here, get home. So before Bryson DeChambeau's press conference was even finished, he was up in the air, literally up in the air, and he headed home because this has affected him very badly. So 3 weeks off. British Open, or the Open, is in 5 weeks' time. So hopefully he'll be ready for Troon. But, it's going to play with your head, isn't it?
Yes, it is going to play with the head, yeah. OK, thanks, Paul. Thanks very much indeed. We'll be back and we'll be talking more about noses and food and thunder. You didn't see the guy who fell asleep at the England Stadium, the match the other day. He woke up at 4 o'clock.
I've got him for you at 7 o'clock. Yes. Yeah, that's my 7 o'clock. He woke up, he woke up, didn't he? He was in the stadium, woke up, he's fast asleep, he's woke up, he's gone, it's 4 o'clock, and I don't know whether he was, drunk throughout the whole game and missed the whole thing and wakes up and everybody's gone.
But how are you? But surely somebody would have found him somewhere or other. I mean, to close down the stadium and left
This is what amazing. Well, people are saying, the lights are on, but they do leave the lights on. It happened here. I nodded off. Patrick Christie was sitting next to me the next time I woke up. I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, 4 a.m. It's there. It's on Instagram. Yeah.
Well, we'll have a look at it. I'll show you something.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Right, stay with us. We're going to be looking through the papers. Claire Muldoon and Alex Armstrong for that. See you in a moment.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning. Disruption is possible to some CalMac Inner Hebrides sailings this morning because of an operational incident on the M9 in Edinburgh. Bus lane is closed northbound on the exit at Junction 1 for the A8 at Newbridge, where someone's broken down. In East Lothian, the A198 is partly blocked each way by an accident at the Bankton Junction at Tranent. Train services in Wales have been stopped between Cardiff Queen Street and Rumney. That's after a freight train broke down. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues already this morning, getting onto the M25 at Junction 5 because of lane closures for roadworks. And in West Sussex on the A27, there's a lane closed westbound along with the exit to the A283 at the Stenning turnoff at Shoreham by Sea for emergency repairs. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
History lecturers at the University of Liverpool have been advised to problematise whiteness and heterosexuality in their seminars. They are saying that you should be guilty if you're white and heterosexual. Not using the long words they use, but that's kind of what they're saying.
Yeah, but do you know what? History in this country is concerned with more and has been lived by more white people and more heterosexuals, right? And that's the history. I'll tell you something else, Dawn. This is Russell Group University material here. This is Liverpool. It's a really good university. Mm-hmm. The thing that really got me going apart from this, and I thought it was an AI generation of words input into a system to come up with from something. It's ridiculous. The main issue I have is the verb problematise. I've never heard of that before. Yeah. So they should be prioritising grammar. Let's get first principles back in there firstly.
It's just promoting anti-racism.
It's not, Amy.
It is. Wait. It's just bringing the marginalised voices into the discussion. So
no, what they're saying is look at British history through the optic of
all perspectives. So let's look at it from the perspective of a queer person growing up. Let's look at it from the perspective of somebody from...
But that's not the majority.
When I actually looked at the evidence, it's all about unpacking bias. And you have to admit there has been a white bias in history.
No, there hasn't, because the facts...
From a white perspective...
Amy, the facts are, in history, most people in this country are white and heterosexual.
Of course, but then there's still...
So that's the history.
...voices that deserve to be brought into the discussion as much as the dominant...
Look,
that's all decolonising the curriculum is hearing all sides of the argument. Which surely we at GB News love. We celebrate that. That's what we do.
We do, but we're not telling anybody it's bad to be white or it's bad to be...
Exactly.
That is not what...
Amy, it is. It is.
Amy.
The People's Channel.
We say hello, good morning to Alex Armstrong, the political commentator, and Claire Muldoon, the journalist, political commentator. Anything you want, she can do. So, Alex, we won't talk about Boris Johnson making headlines today. Are the Conservatives turning to him in desperation?
Yeah, well, I think you took the words out of my mouth there, Eamonn. It does smell a lot like desperation, doesn't it? So supposedly Boris is back. I mean, we saw he did a video for a couple of candidates over the weekend, and I don't think he looked too great in those videos. My personal opinion, he looked a bit, a bit flustered. But so now the Tories, since Farage has come back, they're trying to find their counter, their anti-Farage, and so they've got him. I think it was saying that he signed up to 10. Well, he didn't sign them.
He just printed his signature on 10,000 letters and sent it to the Red Wall. Is that going to win it?
I don't think so. And I think they're massively overestimating how popular Boris is anymore.
Yes.
I think his popularity's plummeted.
He was popular.
Yes, is the key word, isn't it?
Yeah.
So obviously the desperation, Farage has come back. I mean, there's multiple polls now putting Tories neck and neck with Reform or ahead slightly. So I think the penny's starting to drop that they are going to lose votes to the right and in those traditional Labour seats which gave them the election last time. So I think the PM's warning of a generation under Labour, and so they're running back to Boris. It's like Brutus running back to Caesar after he stabbed him in the back.
Boris is on holiday. He's not throwing his heft behind the campaign trail. I mean, if he wanted to turn things around, he possibly could. Yeah. But the argument is that he's as I don't know, I'm trying to say unenamoured, but I don't think that's the word. Disaffected.
Disengaged, I think.
Yeah, just not interested in the Conservatives under Sunak in the way that many...
Well, would you be? I mean, I wouldn't be if I... these are the people that removed me from government, and I suspect Boris is going to want to try and make a comeback once the Tories get wiped out.
That's a big discussion, isn't it? What will happen if
Farage
does get elected?
The electorate, though.
Would he swing your vote?
No, the Conservatives can't swing my vote. They really can't, because we've just had 14 years of nothing. And then to come up, I think, is so patronising. They're all at it, not just the Conservatives, I have to say, in terms of their manifestos. But really...
What about Reform, who say they don't have a manifesto as such?
Well, their manifesto was released yesterday. And to be honest, there are quite a lot of holes in it, but there's holes in them all. We've just had Chelsea Flower Show with watering cans. Well, there's enough holes in these to water anything. Seriously, I do not think they're putting their money where their mouth is. Richard Tice, Farage, the big poster boy, Dr. David Bull, who is a friend of mine, but still, really, can they really do it? I don't know. And then the other issue that they have is our voting system of first past the post. And the horrendous idea that we're going to end up with 37 SNP MPs with less votes than Reform could possibly get, and Reform will only end up with 1 or 2 MPs.
There is a big question about whether, and it's also the same for Labour, that they'll have a smaller proportion of the vote, but possibly more seats than even under Blair.
Yeah.
And we're looking at potentially millions of votes for Reform. I mean, I don't know, I don't want to preempt it, but if the polls are to be believed, and possibly only 1 seat. We have been here before. We've even had a referendum on changing the voting system.
But what I have
could this be a watershed moment in changing it? And is the alternative better? When you look to Europe and these countries where they have multiple parties on the ticket and then gridlock.
What we have to remember is today is the last day for registering your vote. So I urge everybody, go out, register your vote. It's 2 seconds on the YouGov page. Get it done, because it's your democratic, fundamental right as a member of society to help underpin society.
Yeah, and if you want to do a postal vote as well, you've got to get that in. Lots of people going away on holiday or might not be at home, not be able to go to the ballot box
you can't
themselves.
complain.
Yeah, well, quite.
Yeah. I was just going to say on these smaller party manifestos, because I think it's really important, those are there to spark a conversation. They know they're not going to govern any of these small parties, so they're selling to you their vision.
Do you think it doesn't matter if you're not expecting to win power, if the sums don't add up?
No, I do think there should be accountability, and I think, good credit to all the journalists the last 24 hours who've been pulling apart all these manifestos, because you do need to be held accountable, because you might win. It's entirely possible.
There's got to be an element of reality in what you're selling.
Absolutely.
Surely, otherwise it's meaningless. It just turns people off politics altogether.
100%. But I do think there's something to be said. Look at the Green Party manifesto, even the Liberal Democrats manifesto to a certain extent.
You see, I would have phrased that by saying even the Green instead of even the Lib Dem.
Well, true,
all the above.
knows. But I think you're right to say that, yes, certainly.
Alex, talk to us about doctors' recommendations now for drink driving limits?
Yes. Well, I mean, look, so 260 people died last year from drink driving. So this is quite a serious topic.
260?
260.
That's not a lot.
I don't know what... I think whether that stat is people who were driving, not necessarily all the other people that were involved in accidents.
OK.
Of course. So there's lots of people who are then perhaps paralysed or have life-changing injuries as a result of it. But we're talking about the people that have died.
So basically, a lot of people would just argue you shouldn't have any alcohol and drive.
Yes. And doctors are now saying you should have one beer. And that's what they're going to be pushing for. And I suspect that's going to be a big policy discussion over the next few years.
Where would that differ as to what you could take at the moment? I mean, say you recommend to have one.
They always recommend...
What can you get away with at the moment? Three?
Three. I believe it's 3 pints. I think so, yeah.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah, it's quite a lot. And even 1 pint, you know, if you're a small person, 1 pint... I mean, 1 pint is different for everybody, in my opinion. I think, you know, if you're a small person or you haven't eaten, that 1 pint can hit you just as much as maybe 2 or 3 pints, I don't know. But this is what their doctors are recommending, and I suspect it will be part of the policy discussion.
This is already law and governance in Scotland at the moment.
Yeah.
And what people do is they take one at the beginning of the night, let the alcohol go through their system because it only takes an hour for 1 unit, and then they'll maybe have another. But, you know, I would ban alcohol altogether, but it's not necessarily the drink now, it's the drugs as well. And it's the morning after. You could have a big, heavy session. I mean, we've got a story here in the Telegraph today about the England fans drinking 50,000 litres of beer. So it's not just the consumption of the alcohol on the day itself, it's the morning after.
Yeah.
It's still in your bloodstream.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because, you know, that we are a country of publicans and drinkers.
But then you should. I don't think you should be in charge of a bike or a scooter or anything else if you're under the influence as well.
I certainly think a car, you know, a car's pretty dangerous, and you know,
bicycles can cause huge accidents.
That's true.
As well.
That's true.
You know, I think anything with wheels. Where you're sort of travelling at speed is hugely dangerous if you're over the limit.
But it seems quite an easy solution.
Yeah.
You know, don't drink. You're not allowed to drink. There should be a complete ban then that takes out any confusion or anything else.
I agree, Eamonn.
Claire, let's take a look at the front of the Mail. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Totally tuned that out. 30 seconds, that's rattled past. Sorry, Robin, I can hardly hear you today.
No.
Let's get a check then on our forecast. Say goodbye to you both. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Now.
Thank you.
Them after 7:30.
See you again in 40 minutes.
And we'll check in with Alex Deakin, who's got the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many, a fine day today. There will be a few showers around, but many places won't see them and stay dry. Also, just a little bit of rain working its way up towards Kent, so we could see some rain here for a time, particularly later this morning. A scattering of showers already across Scotland, 1 or 2 more developing through the day over northern England, perhaps Northern Ireland, maybe down into the Midlands. But I say they'll be somewhat hit and miss. Many places will stay dry, certainly across Wales and southwest England, dry and fine. And here, 21, maybe 22 degrees Celsius. Cooler further north, temperatures struggling a little bit in the teens with the breeze still coming down from the north. Now, the patchy rain across parts of Kent might just graze into parts of East Anglia, should scoot away through the afternoon. So turning brighter here to end the day. Still a few showers scattered across the Midlands, drifting south over northern England as well. Maybe the odd heavy one too. Parts of southern Scotland also susceptible to some heavy showers, but I suspect any showers over Northern Ireland fading pretty quickly. A cool feel though with that breeze across the Northern Isles. Temperatures only 10 or 11 Celsius at best through the afternoon. As we go through the evening and overnight, we should see the showers tending to fade away fairly rapidly through this evening. So some decent clear spells developing. Still a bit of a breeze, bringing a bit more cloud into East Anglia and potentially across into Kent also. But elsewhere, the winds falling fairly light. Some mist and fog is possible. Temperatures will dip down to single figures across the north, double digits, certainly in urban areas further south to start tomorrow. And for most, tomorrow's looking like a fine day. It could start a bit cloudy over the southeast. The cloud will increase across the northwest. A bit of rain likely to trickle in here, but late in the day, again, a small chance of 1 or 2 showers, but most places will be fine tomorrow. Some lengthier spells of sunshine, feeling a bit warmer as well. The winds will be lighter and temperatures generally creeping up a little higher, more widely over 20 Celsius across the south. Goodbye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
the latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Delays are possible to some CalMac Inner Hebrides sailings this morning because of an operational incident on the M9 in Edinburgh. The bus lane is closed on the northbound exit at Junction 1 for the A8 at Newbridge, where someone's broken down. In East Lothian, the A198 is partly blocked each way by an accident at the Bankson Junction at Trinent. On the M5 in Gloucestershire, 2 lanes are closed southbound between junctions 13 and 14 south of Stroud. Overnight roadworks have overrun. Trains in Wales have been stopped between Cardiff Queen Street and Rumney after a freight train broke down. In Kent on the A249, there are southbound queues towards the roadworks just before junction 5 of the M2 at the Stockley roundabout at Sittingbourne. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. And in West Sussex on the A27, there's a lane closed westbound along with the exit to the A283 at Shoreham for emergency bridge repairs. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
There's still time to win our Summer Spectacular with an incredible trio of treats, and you could win them. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Fast approaching 7 o'clock. It's Tuesday, the 18th of June. You're very welcome to Breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
And leading the news on this Tuesday morning, the Conservatives are turning to Boris Johnson to fight the threat of reform and Nigel Farage.
Labour's pledging to bring banking back to the high street with a promise of 350 banking hubs over 5 years.
And as Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves promises to renegotiate Brexit. We'll be debating whether we should be boosting ties with the European Union.
Royal Ascot Racing's glitziest festival begins today with more than 250,000 racegoers expected during the week.
And in other sport this morning, Kylian Mbappe breaks his nose as France beat Austria last night. Slovakia provided the biggest Euro shock ever by beating the Belgians, thanks to the snickometer, which I will tell you about. After choking the US Open, Rory McIlroy takes 3 weeks off. And one more thing, just in case you missed the Premier League, the new fixtures for next season will be out at 9 o'clock.
Finally, some signs of summer. Not particularly warm today, but most places dry and bright. We will see a few showers, especially across the north. Many places seeing sunny spells tomorrow as well, and temperatures just ticking up a little this week. Join me later for a full forecast.
So just 16 days to go until the general election, and today is the final one to register to vote and have your say.
Conservatives increasingly desperate, and they're turning to Boris Johnson to fight off reform and Nigel Farage as the former Prime Minister begins to play a more active role in the campaign.
Well, Boris Johnson is warning Labour could be in power for a generation if voters give their support to reform.
While Labour have promised to bring banking back to the high street as they pledge to create 350 banking hubs over the next 5 years. How are they going to do that? Well, one of the questions we'll be asking Deputy Political Editor at The Mail on Sunday, Anna Mikalova. Anna, first of all, let's get into Rishi Sunak. We're saying increasingly desperate. Big interview in the Mail today. What does it tell us?
So he's sat down with my colleague Jason Groves and he has essentially launched his warning, don't vote for Labour. Keir Starmer will be in power for a generation. You're going to hand him over a supermajority. So really pushing that attack line that has become the main line for this Conservative election campaign. They've shifted from talking about anything about their own policies to very much warning, don't vote for Labour, don't vote for reform and you'll get Labour, and also don't vote Labour because of you will be hit by higher taxes, all these
What do you think his chances are of getting his wish?
I think the tax thing will resonate with people. I mean, look, it's a bit Rishi warning voters that vote Labour, you'll get the highest tax burden in a generation, when he himself has brought in the highest tax burden in recent history. So, but I think that argument lands, particularly since Labour just hasn't really had an answer about a lot of these tax questions. So they probably made the mistake of ruling out some taxes, some tax rises, and then obviously the next question is, well, what about these taxes?
Yeah. And
they haven't had a particularly good answer, which definitely raises the concern that a lot of things are up for grabs. Council tax, capital gains tax, these are some of the things that they haven't really ruled out, they haven't really talked about. And they keep saying, we're going to go for growth, we're going to boost growth, we're going to have a Blair-style era of growth. But the problem is, it's a very different period in history. It's a very different economic environment they're inheriting. So if you don't have that much growth, then the only answer really is
increase taxes.
Increase taxes, cut spending, or boost borrowing, and they've sort of ruled out the last two.
Do these parties, though, not realise people are broke? People, they face their household bills, the cost of living crisis, and then they have to deal with everyday life, going to the cinema, buying a meal out, various things, and it's just all grown disproportionately. I mean, the burden on people's wallets and purses, incredible.
Yeah, exactly. The other day, in fact, when I went to Manchester for the Labour manifesto launch, I spoke to someone on the train, just a local business owner, and I asked him, how are you going to vote? Like, what do you think? And he says he didn't know, he wasn't that engaged on the detail, but he said he went out the other day with his family and a hot dog cost him £16.
Yeah,
and that was his response to the political question.
But that is
completely understandable.
And I suppose that points to where Nigel Farage is politically very astute. He's tapped into that kind of public dissatisfaction, and he's put together not a manifesto but this series of ideas which are really a wish list, and he himself admits, possible to know if they're even possible to implement, but he's just basically said we'd like to massively increase spending and massively cut taxes. And when I say massively, he's talking about 10 times what the government's talking about in terms of spending. Is it fanciful? Does it matter that it doesn't add up, any of it?
I think well, the fact that it doesn't add up, he's obviously not going to be in government. I mean, economists have called it absolutely fanciful. They've really criticised the tax plans. But I think there are other things in that manifesto that are interesting. So, for example, Reform is pretty much the only party that has taken a radically different position on net zero and green energy. So they are basically saying we will scrap all green targets. Now, no other party is doing that. And Nigel Farage has definitely seen an opportunity there, because these targets, while they do remain popular when people are polled about them, they will hit people in their pocket.
Yeah, so they are popular, the aspiration is popular, but would you pay for it? And if so, how much are you prepared to pay for it? That's a different question.
Well, it's certainly shaken things up a little bit, and as he said himself, prompting debate. And we'd love to know your views this morning at home on what you've made of all of the parties and what they're offering so far. You can do that by going to gbnews.com/your say. Anna, thanks very much for now.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you. The Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves has pledged to forge closer ties with the European Union if Labour wins.
Yeah, she says that she wants to improve the UK-EU trade deal that was agreed by Boris Johnson's government in 2020.
Well, joining us now to debate whether we should be aiming for closer ties with the EU, former UK leader Neil Hamilton and Director of Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandaya. Very nice to see both of you. Well, first of all, Neil, from your point of view, obviously, you're very wary. I can't see you advocating closer ties with the EU.
Well, the reality is we've hardly left the EU. In 8 years, almost to the day since the referendum, the British government has done absolutely nothing to reduce the burden of EU regulations, many of which we opposed, but were outvoted when we were members of the EU. Nothing has been done to reduce that carapace of over-regulation. And the net zero things you've just been talking about, EU law would stop us from doing that if we had closer ties with the EU. Targets have had to be moved back because they're unrealistic and the costs are now becoming evident to people and they don't want to pay them. Well, the EU technocrats, of course, are not interested in the opinions of the people. I think if Labour wants to move back into the EU, then we should have another referendum to reverse the result of the last one.
To be clear, they haven't said that they do want to return to the European Union. They just want to improve trade and remove friction. And there have been issues even in the City of London where pretty much every single bank has had to send members of staff to open satellite offices in Paris and other European cities in order to avoid impacts on our economy and their trading.
No, I mean that's a trivial issue. Actually, opening branch offices in the European Union, and what's much more important is that the EU never gave us free trade in services in the EU, where we have a trade surplus. But the trade in goods, where the EU has a massive trade surplus with us, is hemmed in with all sorts of restrictions. And Northern Ireland, of course, is explicitly remaining in the single market. So that's Brexit, which has not been fulfilled as far as Northern Ireland is concerned. We have a border down the middle of the Irish Sea, which Boris Johnson said was completely unacceptable.
Well, let's get the thoughts of Dr. Kandaya on all of this. Do you think we should boost ties with the EU?
We should definitely boost ties with the EU. They're our closest trading partner. According to an independent think tank, Cambridge Econometrics, we're a smaller economy, £140 billion shorter. According to a City Hall survey, there are 290,000 less jobs in London alone. It's hard to find a businessman or person that has been trading with the European Union before who thinks Brexit was a good idea. There's so much red tape, it's harder to do business. So it's a terrible idea.
EU imposing the red tape, not Britain. It's because they won't do a free trade deal that we're in this halfway house situation now. And that was never on the table. We've never used our
free trade deal
£100 billion
before.
a year trade surplus that we've got in their favour.
We had a free trade deal before, but even if it's beyond the economics, we are living in a volatile world. No one foresaw an invasion of a European nation before the Brexit negotiations. We need to stand closer together in solidarity. When we were watching the D-Day celebrations, that sense of solidarity, we were one continent working together. We need that again. What about immigration? That was the big push, wasn't it? That Brexit would help us with immigration, but actually our immigration numbers have gone up and up. We need a closer working relationship with Europe in order that when people do fail their asylum claims, and not all will, I'm a big proponent of us having a humanitarian border, but for those that fail their asylum claim, we have no relationship to be able to send people back. So we need closer ties, and that doesn't mean joining the EU, but it needs solidarity and friendship.
Well, the immigration problem has nothing to do with membership of the EU. The big rise in immigration into the UK has been from outside the EU, and the asylum system inside the EU isn't working anyway. France wants to send back migrants to Italy, and Italy won't receive them. So the Dublin Convention simply isn't working.
Neil, a lot of people will be watching. They'll be looking to you and they'll be saying, right, you advocated this, and we should break ties with the European Union. But a lot of people would say to you today, how are you feeling better off, Neil? How has your life changed for the better not being attached to the European Union?
We are attached. That's my point. We haven't actually taken advantage of the freedoms to detach ourselves from it. And in fact, what all we've done is to kowtow in the negotiations over the Windsor framework to what Brussels wanted and not got anything in return, because we've had useless negotiators on the part of this failed Conservative government, which never wanted Brexit in the first place. Theresa May tried to block it effectively, but then she was turfed out. Boris Johnson got us over the line in name only, but did absolutely nothing on migration or indeed on trade with the EU to take advantage of our new freedoms. Yes, we've been able to negotiate some free trade deals with other countries around the world, and in particular in the Pacific Partnership, which is far more important in the longer term than Europe, which is declining relative to the rest of the world. But we've done nothing to take advantage of getting rid of the over-regulation which has come about as a result of our membership of the EU up till 2019. And that's my complaint, is that Brexit has never actually been delivered.
Dr. Kandai, what do you make of, I suppose, our unique situation here in the UK? We're expecting to see a left-wing government soon voted into power, whereas pretty much the whole of the rest of Europe seems to be moving to the right. And a lot of commentary that I've been reading has been surprised to see Rachel Reeves and Labour wanting closer ties with an increasingly right-wing European Union. We've seen the rise of the right-wing in the recent elections of the EU just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I must admit I'm very nervous about that rise of the right wing. I'm always one person believes that you're in it to win it, that if you're not in relationship, you can't influence. So I think we do need closer ties in order to push back against some of those right-wing tendencies.
And a final thought to you, Mr. Hamilton?
Well, it's the people of Europe now rising in revolt against the unelected technocrats of Brussels, who are the permanent government of the EU, regardless of what happens in general elections around the continent. And so, the European Union is changing very much. And the latest elections in the last week are just a demonstration, once again, of populist revolts everywhere. Look at what's happening in France at the minute. How's that going to turn out in the next month when they've got a general election as well? I think that the EU will change, and change for the better, because it will become more responsive to popular opinion. But the institutions of the EU make it absolutely impossible for that to be reflected in the constitutional structure of it. That's the principal reason why I wanted to leave the EU, is to restore democratic control. But unfortunately, the British government hasn't been interested in giving control back to the British people. That's why the Conservative government is about to be turfed out with a massive defeat in the general election on the 4th of July. And that's why reform is now rising up, because we're going to refight a lot of the battles that we thought we'd won 8 years ago.
Well, 8 years on, and positions pretty much entrenched, certainly in this debate this morning. But thank you for sharing your thoughts, Dr. Krish Kandai and Chris Hamilton. Neil Hamilton, forgive me, for all of that.
Thank you. There was an European Union proposal which didn't really get a lot of coverage last week, which was terrible, absolutely terrible. It sent me into decline. Well, it doesn't really affect us, but they're banning smoky bacon crisps.
Oh, no.
Why?
What's it full of? No, I didn't.
Well, goodness knows. I mean, it could be bad. It could be terrible things, but it happens to be like one of my, well, maybe my favourite type of crisp. But that doesn't matter, because I live in Northern Ireland.
Oh,
so
you get the workaround, and you've got an Irish passport, so you're technically still able to fritter about and get your bacon crisps.
Yes, you could do that. But in Southern Ireland, like Tato bacon crisps will be banned. That's like the end of the world. That's terrible.
Oh,
terrible.
Well, there we go. Helena Hancock.
As I told you, the weather situation, but it's going to get better, we believe, this week.
We think, we hope, we pray.
Alex Deacon will tell you.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many, a fine day today. There will be a few showers around, but many places won't see them and stay dry. Also, just a little bit of rain working its way up towards Kent, so we could see some rain here for a time, particularly later this morning. A scattering of showers already across Scotland, and 1 or 2 more developing through the day over northern England, perhaps Northern Ireland, maybe down into the Midlands. But I say they'll be somewhat hit and miss. Many places will stay dry. Certainly across Wales and southwest England, dry and fine. And here 21, maybe 22 degrees Celsius. Cooler further north. Temperatures struggling a little bit in the teens with the breeze still coming down from the north. Now the patchy rain across parts of Kent might just graze into parts of East Anglia. Should scoot away through the afternoon. So turning brighter here to end the day. Still a few showers scattered across the Midlands, drifting south over northern England as well. Maybe the odd heavy one too. Parts of southern Scotland also susceptible to some heavy showers, but I suspect any showers over Northern Ireland fading pretty quickly. A cool feel though with that breeze across the Northern Isles. Temperatures only 10 or 11 Celsius at best through the afternoon. As we go through the evening and overnight, we should see the showers tending to fade away fairly rapidly through this evening. So some decent clear spells developing. Still a bit of a breeze, bringing a bit more cloud into East Anglia and potentially across into Kent also. But elsewhere, the wind's falling fairly light. Some mist and fog is possible. Temperatures will dip down to single figures across the north, double digits, certainly in urban areas further south to start tomorrow. And for most, tomorrow's looking like a fine day. It could start a bit cloudy over the southeast. The cloud will increase across the northwest. A bit of rain likely to trickle in here, but late in the day, again, a small chance of 1 or 2 showers, but most places will be fine tomorrow. Some lengthier spells of sunshine, feeling a bit warmer as well. The winds will be lighter and temperatures generally creeping up a little higher, or widely over 20 Celsius across the south. Goodbye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
OK, so not bad news on the weather front, and time to cheer you up with the time at 17 minutes past 7. It is our giveaway competition.
Yeah, £16,000 in total. That's 15 grand in cash and lots of summer treats as well. Here's how it could be yours.
Don't miss out on your chance to win our Summer Spectacular. And have we got a prize for you? First, there's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction. So you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck. It'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Kind of prize.
So the theory is that we've been debating there that Labour will bring the country step by step, little by little, back in line with the European Union with various rules that they'll reintroduce. Are they coming clean about what they are doing? What do you think? Have your say here on Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel, and you get in touch with us like that, okay? gbnews.com/your say, because as we we're just about 2 weeks now before the election, and if there's just small things, certain things that you want to see being changed that would win your vote or would make a difference to the country, and the politicians should be instigating, let us know.
Do you know, if they wanted closer ties with the EU, they wouldn't be able to add this VAT tax on private schools? It's against the law in the European Union, pretty much every other advanced economy, to tax education, because it seemed to be in the public interest to be pulling people up.
So you can't do this in France or Holland or Germany?
No, absolutely can't tax education. Of course not. But they're going to closer alliance.
Would suggest that's more the sort of politics of envy than
well, it's not a progressive idea, is it? That's my thoughts on that.
So whether you benefit or don't benefit from private education or not, should the country or people have a right to avail of it? Let us know. Paul Coyte next, and we're going to be live at Ascot. Cameron Walker there.
Is it the GGs?
Yeah, next.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
she could have saved Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
So we were talking about the man who fell asleep at the England football stadium for the match on Sunday night, and basically he woke up. He woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, Paul.
Yeah, it was in Schalke Stadium, so it's in Gelsenkirchen where Spurs. Where I've still got
everywhere
on my mind.
Spurs.
It's always this on my mind. Where England played Serbia. So I don't know what the situation was. I guess he probably had a few. Because I can never get that when I've seen people at football so drunk they remember nothing about the game whatsoever. But anyway, he woke up, and I believe it was 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and he filmed all around, and there was absolutely nobody there, so there was absolutely no doubt he was there. Why he was left there, how no one discovered him.
I think that's a bit negligent of the stadium, to be honest.
Do you reckon he had no friends with him?
I think it's a bit frightening. I can't sleep anywhere, but I can't stay awake on an aeroplane. It's like a disorder. So I'm never awake for takeoff in an aeroplane. The minute I'm in the seat and those engines start...
So you just...
It's like...
But it's to do, if you go down the runway, you depressurise or pressure sends you off to sleep.
It's crazy.
Basically.
It's absolutely crazy.
Well, do you get the
You're very lucky doing that. That's great.
It's awful. But then I feel, frightened. That
Wake up and load of dribble
awake.
down.
I don't know what's going on. Yeah, where I am.
Well, let's have a look at this fella anyway. So here he is. We don't even know what his name is.
Well, we do know what his name is.
So he's... Listen.
Okay, I'm just walking out. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm shivering, eating Schalke again.
Oh, he's had a few drinks,
He's a
hasn't
bit
he?
worse than
The thing is,
dear.
I feel for, can you imagine, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, he's probably really cold, he's tired, he's probably, I just want my mum now,
Yeah,
I'm really
exactly.
tired, I've had enough, I just want to be in bed. Poor fella. And I don't know when anybody just left him, they all walked out, but I know there's been a few people that have then gone on social media going, oh, it's set up, how come the lights are on? Well, they do leave the lights on.
They do leave the lights on.
They do leave the lights on all night, so it probably is
I think
completely
his pals just
legit.
thought he looked like a bit of hard work to get home, and they just couldn't.
Yeah, it was one of
face
those.
They were
that
like,
go, well,
oh, not again,
I
Sam.
tell you what, you'll find it very hard to get out of that stadium.
I know.
Because they'll lock the doors.
But you know what I would do?
What?
Go get have a kick around on the pitch. If you find a ball, I'd go on the pitch. Wouldn't you?
So you might as well, if you're there, you might
Well, I might as well have a little fun if I get down on the pitch. He's probably so high up he can't even get down there.
No.
Poor fella.
Euros, we're all talking about those.
Yep.
But today is also the first day of Royal Ascot.
It is the first day of Royal Ascot. Do you know who's ridden more winners at Royal Ascot than anybody else?
Frankie Dettori.
Frankie Dettori is close. Now, Frankie Dettori has ridden 81.
Lester Piggott.
Lester Piggott.
Well done.
Honestly, it's like working with Lord Oaksey.
It's just a life well spent at the GG's.
It is.
Do you know who there was the most amazing man I ever met? Richard O'Sullivan.
I know the tune, I just don't know the words.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
what a skill.
One of the true greats. You know, there's a friend of mine, Rupert Bell, who's also a racing commentator. He nearly got the part of Peter O'Sullivan in The Crown because they needed someone to play Peter O'Sullivan.
What did they?
And it was the closest thing, and he was still upset that he never actually got the gig as Peter O'Sullivan
I said
on The Crown.
I said Richard O'Sullivan there. He was in Robin's Nest or something, wasn't he?
Richard O'Sullivan. Yeah, of course. That's the Man About the House.
Man About the House.
Yeah,
and of course,
Peter
what's her name
O'Sullivan,
was in that? Youth of Joyce with George and Mildred.
George and Mildred.
So they
was
were
a
in the
spin-off.
same. They owned the house, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was 2 spin-offs that came from Man About the House. So there was that. There was George and Mildred, and then, like you said, Robin's Nest. Was where Richard O'Sullivan...
Yes.
Or was it Peter O'Sullivan that was actually...
Oh, gosh, you lost me now.
Well, let's go to Cameron Walker at Royal Ascot and let's see what he can tell us about what's happening
Oh,
there today.
wow.
Oh, my goodness me.
Goodness me, Cameron. You have pulled out all the stops.
Give us a twirl, Anthea.
Smart.
Go on. You've got to give us a
Isabel.
twirl.
Trying to fit in with the crowd at Royal Ascot.
I don't think you fit in the crowd.
What was that, sorry?
I think there's a delay.
I'm sorry, Sam.
Well, I mean, it is an absolute... That's all right. I mean, it's a very important event, of course, in the royal calendar. It happens every year since the 1700s. Queen Anne started it, but we're expecting the King, Queen, other members of the royal family here for most of the week. Buckingham Palace not confirming ahead of time, but just look back to the pictures from last year where the King's horse, Desert Hero, won, and the ecstatic facial expressions from the royal box from the King and Queen. I think they probably forgot they were being filmed, actually. They were just so excited that their horse, Desert Hero, won the George V Stakes, and they are going to be hoping for further wins this week, the King and Queen. They have 5 horses racing during this week. On Thursday, they got Gilded Walker in the King Water, even in the King George V Stakes. We've also got Desert Hero riding again, but in the Hardwick Stakes on Saturday. Treasure will race in the Ribblesdale Stakes. Crown Estate will compete in the Britannia Stakes, and Hard to Resist will gallop in the Sandringham Estates on Friday. But all eyes are on the horse Water. That is predicted to do very well. That's another one of the King's horses. That is because it's got the same trainer, William Haggis, and the same jockey, Tom Marquand, who trained and rode Desert Hero last year, so that's why it's tipped to do particularly well. But of course the King has a long way to do to beat his mother's record, Queen Elizabeth II, who attended Ascot every year of her reign up until 2020 when the pandemic stopped her, and then poor health of course stopped her. But she had more than 20 winners during her long reign at Ascot. £10 million prize money is up to grabs for the owners of the horses this week, and of course you've got this magnificent carriage procession happening every day with members of the royal family and their guests as well. So it's going to be a very busy week, and the weather looks amazing, unlike Saturday where we all got very wet.
Lovely, but not as amazing as you.
Unbelievable.
Thank you very much indeed, my friend. Thank you.
Oh,
Let's
thank
say
you,
goodbye
Eamonn.
then. Thank you.
Looking fabulous. Only slightly upstaged by the incredible lawn behind him. I mean, the way they get those stripes and the green, it's so verdant. It blows my mind.
Nothing would upstage Cameron today.
True.
Nothing
OK,
at
true.
all.
But slightly.
Well, they get plenty of fertilisation, don't they?
Yes, that's true.
Well,
There's nothing like horse manure.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Horse manure smells quite nice, though.
Oh, get out. It doesn't.
Oh, it's the best kind of animal excrement, I would say, in terms of its
your
odour.
favourite animal excrement?
It's better than cows. Cows can be really...
I'd go out with a plastic bag and pick up horse.
Would you really?
Well, look, we've got to stop talking about manure.
Excrement.
Now,
I'm not a country person, obviously.
Because we're now going to talk to the Minister of State for Food, Farming and Fisheries, and that is...
We have Mark Spencer.
Mark Spencer's there this morning. Mark, good morning to you. Farming, top of your list today to talk about. What are you going to do for farmers?
Well, I mean, quite a lot. We've done quite a lot already, Eamonn, in supporting our UK farmers. We protected a £2.4 billion annual budget. We're going to actually increase that over the next Parliament by £1 billion to make sure that they carry on with their brilliant work of providing food for the nation, but doing that in a way which is environmentally sensitive and safeguarding and looking after those brilliant landscapes that we hold so dear. You know, I think certainly my constituents, people up down the country, when you're travelling, or whether you're a tourist in those beautiful landscapes, recognise that actually it's farmers that have created those landscapes, that have protected it for generations. We want to carry on supporting them to do that, but also to produce top quality British food like they have done for 80 years.
Mark, I don't know how they're going to continue doing it. They're under a lot of pressure, these people. Mega farms are, you know, the way ahead seems to be buy farms, make them bigger, you know, amalgamate with other properties around there. Holding people onto the land, families staying on the land, is becoming more rare. It's more difficult to do. They really do have it tough.
Yeah, and it is farming families, small family farms, that are the backbone of that UK agricultural system that produce the food that we require as a nation, that look after those landscapes. And of course, one of those challenges that they face is how they then pass that down the generations without being overtaxed. So one of the commitments we're making is not to increase or to introduce inheritance tax on agricultural holdings, so that those farms, family farms, can be passed down the generation, so they can carry on with their family expertise in producing food and managing our landscapes. And interesting that other political parties seem reluctant to rule out those sorts of tax increases to those family farms, and certainly we're calling on those other political parties, especially the Labour Party, to rule that out, and they seem reluctant to do that at this moment in time.
Yeah, I'm just reading Rachel Reeves, who is the Shadow Chancellor, last September refused to rule out axing agricultural and business reliefs, and she was also asked to rule out changes to the inheritance tax system, and she said she would not make any of those changes. So serious concerns for farmers there. But can farmers trust the Conservatives? I mean, I think back just a few weeks and we had this go-slow of tractors through Westminster who say that you're absolutely not understanding concerns around food security, but Rich to sit here and say we want to protect your land and the land that makes it a green and pleasant nation. But actually, a lot of them would say you've let them down.
Well, actually, when you look at the record, I mean, that individual protest that you talked about was actually small scale, wasn't supported by the National Farmers Union, it wasn't supported by the Country Land and Business Association. But, you know, what I would say is we do recognise the challenges that agriculture has had followed the war in Ukraine. It had a huge impact on the cost of fertiliser, of agricultural chemicals and cost inputs for farmers. We did recognise that challenge. That's why we helped and we stepped in to assist them. And we have a new support mechanism called the Sustainable Farming Incentive, which basically motivates farmers to continue to produce top quality food, but to do that in a way which is better for the environment, more sustainable for their farming enterprises and for the soils in which they use, but also a system of grant support so they can invest in the latest technology, in new equipment, so that they can continue to be productive and to increase their productivity moving forward. And at the same time, of course, there is a challenge of this fairness in the supply chain, so that not only the farmer can make a profit, but the processor and the retailer, and that profitability, if you like, of those food products is shared equally and fairly between the retailer, the processor, and the farmer. And I think in the past, we've seen a little bit of imbalance in that the retailer and the processor have taken the lion's share of the profit. And we've actually legislated to improve that in the dairy sector. We've done it in the pork sector as well. And we've committed to do that in other sectors as well, to make sure that those farmers get a fair crack of the whip and a fair share of the profit.
Mark, surely that means looking for new trade deals, looking for new opportunities, not being as dependent as the industry has been on supermarket deals, and supermarkets rule the roost.
Yeah, both. So we can do both. And actually, there's been some really good examples of where those trade deals have helped, because, of course, without getting into too much detail, so, for example, in the UK with pork, we eat an awful lot of bacon, quite a lot of pork chops. We don't eat a lot of pork offal. Now, they do in Mexico, for example, so the CPTPP trade deal we did allows us to export pork offal to Mexico and other parts of the world, so we can sort of increase the profitability from each individual pig, if you like, as a nation, by exporting the bits of the animal that we don't eat and consuming the bits of the animal that we do. That's good for the processor, it's good for farmers, and I think we've got a lot to gain from international trade, because our reputation around the world is one of very high animal welfare, very high quality food. Lots of people around the world want to eat top quality British produce, and that's certainly what we can produce as a nation.
Mark, it's funny you talking about offal there and whatever. When I was a kid, on a Saturday night, my father used to bring in as a treat, this was our snack on a Saturday night, wrapped in greaseproof paper. They'd have gone to the butchers and brought back pig's feet. We would have trotters. We would actually sit and eat them like the way you would eat crisps or something.
Like, what's not crackling?
Toes, nails.
No, but you go into a pub and you can get
pork scratchings.
Is that like? Does it taste like pork scratchings?
No, darling. It looks like a foot, right? It's got nails on it.
Can't cope.
I'm telling you, it's got a hoof.
Okay, it's okay.
Do you not believe me?
No, I do. I just don't know what. I don't know.
Oh, we had it rough in those days. I don't know. I wonder, Mark, does anybody eat pig's feet anymore?
So they certainly do around the world, but they're not consumed as widely in the UK as they were at one time, but they certainly do in other parts of the world. That's a really good example of where, through international trade, we can seek out those export markets to consume the bits, if you like, of the animal that we don't eat here in the UK, and that spreads the profitability, if you like, across the whole carcass.
I know we almost have to let you go, but I can't let you go without mentioning either Boris Johnson or Nigel Farage. At the front of the Telegraph saying the desperate Tories are now turning to Johnson to try and counter reform. Do you think he might be your secret weapon? Lots of tens of thousands of letters being signed by the former Prime Minister and sent off to the Red Wall. I mean, you've got to do something about Nigel Farage.
Of course, Boris recognises, I'm sure, that if you don't vote for Rishi Sunak, if you vote for another party, you will get Keir Starmer by accident. And there is a real danger that those people who are thinking of voting for another political party other than the Conservative Party will wake up the next morning with a Keir Starmer government. I don't want that to happen, which is why I'm out there, and I will be right up to polling day to convince people to vote Conservative.
Making that point for weeks, do you think it will take Boris Johnson to drive it home?
Well, you know, I think we've all got a responsibility, all members of the Conservative Party. Of course, Boris is a member of the Conservative Party. We're all out there trying to deliver that message. But, you know, when we wake up on the 5th of July, there are only two people that will be Prime Minister. That is either Keir Starmer or Rishi Sunak. If you don't vote for Rishi Sunak, you will get Keir Starmer. And so those people who are minded to vote Reform or for another political party will, in effect, elect Keir Starmer by not supporting the Conservative Party.
Dodging the question, but we have to let you go. Mark Spencer, Minister of State for Food, Farming and Fisheries. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks. Good talking to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Eamonn says, Lucky Jim, some people are trying to eat their breakfast. RJ Thomas says, my Yorkshire granddad loved trotters.
Yeah. Oh, well, I didn't say you should have them for your breakfast, but...
Darling, they look like this.
Well, they did look like that. Well, they look like scratchings. No, they don't. They look like feet with big nails on them. That's what they did.
Great.
Talking about big feet and nails. Claire Muldoon, Alex Armstrong, right after this. Don't go away.
Which one's which?
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. Disruption is possible to some CalMac Inner Hebrides sailings because of an operational incident in East Lothian. The A198 is partly blocked each way by an accident at the Bankton Junction at Tranent. On the M62 in Greater Manchester, the inside lane's closed eastbound, where a lorry's broken down between junctions 21 and 22 from Milnrow to Rishworth Moor, causing delays. There are delays of up to half an hour, with some cancelled trains at Manchester Piccadilly because of a signalling problem. On the M42 in Worcestershire, the inside lane's closed northbound after an accident between junctions 3 and 3A from Redditch to the M40, causing delays. On the M5 in Gloucestershire, 2 lanes are closed southbound along with the entry split road at junction 14 south of Stroud, where overnight roadworks have overrun, with delays towards and past there. And train services in Wales are suspended between Cardiff, Queen Street and Rumney after a freight train broke down. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
Yeah, for dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes and Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
GB News, Britain's election channel.
Claire and Alex here to talk about the stories in the news, and we've made a story in the news today, and that is pig's feet.
Yeah, this is going wild on your sake. Margot says, my granny used to cook pig's feet. You can buy trotters in my local supermarket. I suppose it's an acquired taste, maybe. Jean Abbott's, my father-in-law ate pig's feet, or trotters as he called them. He was from the Midlands. It was a treat, as was sheep's brains. John Andrews, my daughter, who's a daddy's girl still to this day, has lamb hearts. When she was a little girl, I used to treat her and me to lamb's hearts. And then finally, this one. I popped into the butcher's the other day and asked the man behind the counter if he had pig's trotters, to which he replied, no, it's just the way I walk.
Very good. So, you ever tried pig's feet?
I've not, no. The closest I've ever got to that is pork scratching, so if I'm being honest.
I quite like pork scratching,
I do that,
but I'm not sure about darling. No, they've got
I'm so glad I was born in the 90s. Honestly, I've never been more grateful.
Just
don't call them pig's feet, call them what they are, Eamonn. They're trotters.
Yeah.
No.
Don't try and dress it up.
What do they taste like? What's the taste of them?
Well, they're gristly.
Fat.
They're gristly. No, they don't taste like fat. They taste like gristle. And they're, they were quite savoury. They were quite nice. But, I mean, that was the difference, Claire. In the 60s, working class people would eat a lot of offal because that was the cheapest sort of food about. Whereas now it's the preserve of the rich.
Well,
so it is.
Cod cheeks, beef cheeks as well, are a delicacy in many a good restaurant. But do you know what they need now to season their food with?
What?
According to the Daily Star, orange juice on your fish and chips. Orange juice. And what they're trying to do, what they've said to do...
Is that instead of the vinegar?
No, it's instead of the salt, actually. It's the citrus. The element that they're after. And why not put lemon on top of your fish and chips? That would be the tradition. For God's sake.
Lemon is a complete waste of time. It's a waste of time in Coca-Cola. It's a waste of time on fish and chips. Why everywhere you go, there's a bloody big slice of lemon in things.
Oh, so
it's a
true.
waste of
I
time.
love it. It's only place.
I hate lemon as well.
I love it.
I love
it's
lemon.
Typical. I'm always on my own.
I love lemon.
Yes,
and I'll tell you the best place for a slice of lemon in a fantastic gin and tonic.
Oh, yes. Or a little bit on some smoked salmon.
I can understand that. I can understand that, but I just don't think it works.
I'm not sure about orange juice, though. Draw the line at orange.
If you eat ceviche, that's...
I love
it too.
Absolutely.
And it's all cured with the lemon and the salt and the... Oh, gosh.
Oh, make me
bursts of flavour.
There is a suggestion here, Claire, that social media should carry cigarette-style health warnings.
This is actually a really good article in The Telegraph, and I wished it would actually be echoed in this country as well. There's an American surgeon, and this Congress introduced warnings on the packs of cigarettes in 1965, so we can see that we're already ahead of the curve. And what they're saying is, he added, the measures should be on preventative platforms from collecting sensitive data from children and should restrict the use of features, which we know that they do. We know that these apps and the social media, your Snapchats and everything else, this instant gratification from games, we know the effect it's having on young children's brains. We know the effect it's having with relationship building or the ability to not build relationships. I think this is great, and I think what it will do, they're not going to completely destroy it or get rid of it, but they will at least flag an issue and get people talking about it and get people knowing the dangers.
More issues after this short break. Please don't go away.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually, it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The University of Cambridge has told students to stop flirting with staff under a new policy banning sexual relationships with professors. The new rules, which come into force next month, beginning of July, include a warning against behaviour that could be interpreted as flirtatious. University staff have been told they must report any behaviour that could constitute a student making advances towards a personal, particularly intimate relationship with them. If you're a tutor, how do you interpret what is flirting and what is just sort of like having a bit of banter?
In fact, you've got to
very nice trousers, by the way.
Thank you.
You see, you didn't even recognise.
Oh, I didn't. I think I'm blushing now. I'm blushing.
So, what's flirting? What's me complimenting your very well-fitting trousers? Yes.
Well, there is a line, because obviously when you're 18 and you go to university, it might be the first time you're away from home. It might be the first time that you're open to maybe a bit of a nightlife, social activity, drinking, and all the rest of it. On the flip side, I know a couple who, this pupil ended up dating their professor, and they've been together for about sort of 15 years now. So I used to go after lectures with my professor and the whole seminar. We used to go to the pub afterwards, and I became very good friends with... she was a mature student. She was on the very, very far left of political... you wondered where that was going for a second, didn't you?
We're both breathing a huge sigh of relief.
Very quick for you, Joe. We're running out of very nice trousers as well. We're running
Thank you. Not as snug as Charlie. I think you've got to have some rules in place that there's no abuse of power. Policing, it's difficult. we ought to be in a position where you can say, get off, back off, or, you know, banter's fine. Actually, I hate that word. I hate it almost as much as woke. Go on, email in.
Thank you very much. I'm flirting with both.
The People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
she could have said storm. You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Your pork scratchings come from a pig's hind leg. So just you were wondering what part of the pig you're eating.
Yeah.
And I remember hearts, Claire. We used to have a big pot that you would put the heart into. A cow's heart is massive.
Is it?
Oh my good! You've never eaten cow's heart?
No. I wasn't born in the 60s.
When were you born in the 50s?
Oh, stop it.
You
were doing
You lined
so
him up for that
well.
one. You lined him up.
I've got one more joke quickly to squeeze in relation to all of this butcher's stuff. Mark Holmes, I once asked the butcher if he had a sheep's head, and he said, no, it's just the way the barber cuts my hair.
Very good.
Anywho.
Train season tickets, Alex, on the decline. Should we be surprised?
No, I do think we should be. But I think it's a sign of the times, isn't it? A lot less people are commuting, and for good reason, frankly. The train fares themselves. I was actually talking to Anna, who was in the studio earlier doing the political hits. She's saying she was getting a train up to Manchester on the weekend, and she just one day return ticket, £200.
Oh,
200
Cheaper to fly.
So the season tickets are now only accounting for 13%, which is quite a dramatic 34% of all journeys that used to be made using season tickets before this time. So this is quite a substantial drop. And I think it's a sign of the times. People are working from home now. They're commuting a lot less, and the trains are unreliable at best. Just the last 2 weeks I've had of 14 days of commuting, 7 days I've had disruption, severe delays.
Well, there was that sort of ironic situation last week when all of the political reporters were heading up north for a big press junket for the government, and the train that all the press were going on got cancelled.
Yeah.
So what's the solution, Alex?
Well, Labour's solution would be to nationalise the railways, saying the private franchise doesn't work, and I actually do agree with them. I don't think the private franchise system works anymore. But it would be nice to see our fares actually come down to a reasonable cost. I don't know what the Tories.
Was there not a news and brief there to say that they wanted to introduce an 8-day-a-month season ticket?
Possibly so. Yes, quite possibly so. Yeah, that would make sense.
Talking about working, Sir Ian McKellen on stage at 85 years of age. And that's incredible, except he fell off the stage during a performance this week, and he's in hospital.
Well, it was last night, in fact.
Right.
And, you know, we band around legends, we bland around the words, you know, amazing, but Ian McKellen, in my opinion, is one of the best actors of his time. I saw him play Richard III. He was extraordinary. He is a master at his craft.
Class.
Yeah.
And he's old. He's 85.
Yeah.
And the irony is not lost that he was playing Falstaff last night.
Oh, no.
But actually, a fall at 85 is serious. You know,
Very
it doesn't
serious.
matter how far.
He belly flopped, Isabel.
Yeah.
You know,
so we wish him all the best.
Yeah, we definitely
We're told
do.
he's in good spirits and is expected to make a full recovery.
Good.
But I mean, that's no small.
And a lovely man, a very, very nice man if you've ever met him. Really, really nice guy to get on with, and he was excellent. It was with Patrick Stewart in Waiting for Godot,
Yes.
I think, as well. Yeah,
Incredibly intelligent.
Oh, you forget he's 85, don't you, really?
Good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Claire and Alex will be back
Thank you,
in about
guys.
40 minutes' time. Look forward to that, guys. Thank you very much indeed. And more stories on pig's feet. We'll bring those up as well. Thank you very much.
Meanwhile, let's get a check on your forecast. Alex Deakin has some promising prospects.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many, a fine day today. There will be a few showers around, but many places won't see them and stay dry. Also, just a little bit of rain working its way up towards Kent, so we could see some rain here for a time, particularly later this morning. A scattering of showers already across Scotland, one or two more developing through the day over northern England, perhaps Northern Ireland, maybe down into the Midlands. But I say they'll be somewhat hit and miss. Many places will stay dry, certainly across Wales and southwest England, dry and fine. And here 21, maybe 22 degrees Celsius. Cooler further north, temperatures struggling a little bit in the teens with the breeze still coming down from the north. Now the patchy rain across parts of Kent might just graze into parts of East Anglia, should scoot away through the afternoon. So turning brighter here to end the day. Still a few showers scattered across the Midlands, drifting south over northern England as well. Maybe the odd heavy one too. Parts of southern Scotland also susceptible to some heavy showers, but I suspect any showers over Northern Ireland fading pretty quickly. A cool feel though with that breeze across the Northern Isles. Temperatures only 10 or 11 Celsius at best through the afternoon. As we go through the evening and overnight, we should see the showers tending to fade away fairly rapidly through this evening. So some decent clear spells developing. Still a bit of a breeze, bringing a bit more cloud into East Anglia and potentially across into Kent also. But elsewhere, the winds falling fairly light. Some mist and fog is possible. Temperatures will dip down to single figures across the north, double digits, certainly in urban areas further south to start tomorrow. And for most, tomorrow's looking like a fine day. It could start a bit cloudy over the southeast. The cloud will increase across the northwest. A bit of rain likely to trickle in here, but late in the day, again, a small chance of one or two showers, but most places will be fine tomorrow. Some lengthier spells of sunshine, feeling a bit warmer as well. The winds will be lighter and temperatures generally creeping up a little higher, more widely over 20 Celsius across the south. Goodbye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M62 in Greater Manchester, the inside lane's closed eastbound, where a lorry's broken down between junctions 21 and 22 from Milne Road to Rishworth Moor, causing delays. On the M42 in Worcestershire, the inside lane's closed northbound after an accident between junctions 3 and 3A from Redditch to the M40. It's taking around 40 minutes in the queues. On the M5 in Gloucestershire, 2 lanes are closed southbound along with the entry slip road at junction 14, the Thornbury and Fowfield turn south of Stroud, where overnight roadworks have overrun, causing delays. Train services in Wales are suspended between Cardiff, Queen Street and Rumney after a freight train broke down. And in Dorset, the A338 is blocked eastbound by an accident west of Bournemouth, with delays towards there and as you divert. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Don't miss out on your chance to win our Summer Spectacular. And have we got a prize for you? First, there's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Hello there, good to see you. 8 o'clock, Tuesday, 18th of June. You're tuned into breakfast here on GB News, and you're very welcome. Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Great to have you on board. We're leading this morning with continuing sliding in the polls for the Conservatives, but they're turning to Boris Johnson to fight the threat of reform and Farage.
Labour pledges to bring banking back to the high street. There's a promise of 350 what are called banking hubs in the next 5 years.
Royal Ascot Racing's glitziest festival begins today with more than 250,000 racegoers expected this week alone.
And also in sport, in the Euros yesterday, Kylian Mbappe broke his nose. There he is with his broken nose. Beat Austria 1-0. Slovakia shocked Belgium by beating them. Rory McIlroy called Sunday the toughest day of his professional career after choking in the last few holes at the US Open. And what's the first game you look for at the start of the season, where the Premier League fixtures for 24-25 are released in an hour?
Finally, some signs of summer. Not particularly warm today, but most places dry and bright. We will see a few showers, especially across the north. Many places seeing sunny spells tomorrow as well, and temperatures just ticking up a little this week. Join me later for a full forecast.
"16 days now until the general election. Today, the final day to register to vote and have your say.
Well, the Tories seem increasingly desperate and are now turning to Boris Johnson to fight off reform and the threat of Nigel Farage, as the former Prime Minister has begun to play a more active role in the campaign.
He is warning Labour could be in power for a generation if voters give their support to reform, while Labour has promised to bring banking back to the high street as they pledge to create 350 banking hubs.
Well, that's over the next 5 years. Let's catch up with our political correspondent, Olivia Utley. She's travelling with Labour at the moment, as is in Bristol this morning, a place I know very well. Good to see you, Olivia. How do you think they'll be feeling off the back of yesterday, with a whole raft of announcements designed to talk about the living wage, and talk this morning from HSBC about how that could lead to a rise in unemployment and increased mortgage rates?
Well, Labour at the moment seem to be feeling pretty chipper. They are brushing off all criticism on those issues that you mentioned there, and they are focusing wholeheartedly on this economy push this week. This banking hubs idea, 350 new banking hubs by the end of the next Parliament, it's not really new. The Conservatives have already brought in 56 new banking hubs and have promised 76 more. It's seen basically as the solution for both parties to high streets which have lost their banks, to have a hub which would incorporate all the different banks where people who still rely on cash could visit. The other thing which Keir Starmer is going to be facing big questions on today, which I think could possibly be a bit of an issue for him, is this issue of council tax bans. Now, there are various members of the Labour Party who have said on air in the last couple of days that Labour will not be re-evaluating those council tax bans. Jonathan Ashworth, the Paymaster General, said that yesterday. Darren Jones said it too. Rachel Reeves, though, has refused to rule it out. And of course, we know that Labour has made quite a lot of expensive promises, and it has promised time and again that it will not be raising national insurance, VAT or income tax. So it needs to find somewhere to get those tax rises. The rumours are that it'll be a capital gains tax rise, some sort of change in council tax bans, fuel duty, possibly booze duty as well. Keir Starmer will be visiting, or perhaps it's Rachel Reeves, will be visiting a pub later today. So I think we can expect to hear a bit more about that. On the whole, it feels as though, again, this is another relatively easy day for Labour. But it could be that this is the moment, at least in the next few days, where the pressure starts to build on exactly where the money is going to come from for some of those more expensive pledges.
So with Rachel Reeves today,
We're with Keir Starmer today. The Labour Party is slightly disorganised with its planning. We're not quite sure where we're going yet, but we are with Keir Starmer. Rachel Reeves, I think, will be in a different part of the country doing a round of the high streets, but I'll let you know more as I find out.
You're going to miss out in the pub. OK, thanks very much indeed, Olivia. Cheers.
We should point out we've got Jonathan Reynolds. He's the Paymaster General, Shadow Paymaster General, coming on just after 9 o'clock for Labour, so we can talk to him about some of that a little bit later on.
Joining us now, former Armed Forces Minister James Heappey, with all that is going on at the moment. Are we here to talk about Port Talbot? No?
No.
No, that's not right. OK. James, what are you making of what you're seeing?
Honestly, it's bizarre stepping from right in the furnace of politics to being on the way out with a general election, as it's called, because on the one hand, in my pocket is a phone that's still on all the Conservative WhatsApp groups, buzzing with the nervous energy of a campaign, but actually kind of it feels to me that a lot of people are just kind of getting on with their summer and are a little bit disinterested in the whole thing. They're a bit fed up with politics.
Within your own party?
No. I think just in the public more generally, you know. And I think that the polls are pretty obvious. What they're saying. I buy the idea that there's still a lot of people that are undecided. I don't think that there's so many people that are undecided that some sort of incredibly unexpected result. I think the polls say what they say, right? And as Grant Shapps said yesterday, I think if you try to deny that, given that one of the charges that politicians are often accused of by the public is they're out of touch, they never say it straight, they don't know what they're talking about. If you're kind of sat there going, everything's fine, the public are looking at you going, well, what on earth did he know? So I think the sort of honesty in the answers that you've had from senior Conservatives in the last 24 hours or so is probably pretty necessary.
You're talking about Grant Shapps saying that it's possible or likely that you won't win.
Yeah, I mean,
it's an unbelievable admission, really, that you have a government, incumbent government admitting defeat, essentially, 16 days ahead of a general election.
So I wonder if is it admitting defeat or is it being honest about where the polls are at the moment? I mean, I think if you went in Conservative Central Office, they would still argue that there is a narrow path to victory, would be the language that they would use. But as I say, I just think if you tour the TV studios when you're 25 points behind and say nothing to see here, everything's fine, you just look ridiculous.
Consistently 25 points behind, Yeah, that's the thing. So what's ahead for you?
Well, I don't know. I'm looking for work, thinking about what I could do, doing a little bit of geopolitical sort of commentary, and very excited to be contributing to GB News over the course of the last few weeks of the election.
Welcome on board.
So there we go.
Very good to see you.
To be brutal, I mean, there are a lot of, big beasts even within the party who will be looking for jobs potentially. Even, Jeremy Hunt. We're talking about Penny Mordaunt potentially, Grant Shapps, who we were talking about a moment ago, James Cleverly, Robert Jenrick. I mean, that speaks to the level of dissatisfaction with the last 14 years. And you talk about this narrow path to victory. And I wonder if that involves bringing in these potential reform voters and bowing to a lot of what was laid down by Nigel Farage yesterday in his social contract.
Well, look, the Conservative Party is at its best when it establishes the broadest possible coalition of voters that exist from the centre to the right, never the far right. In 2019, that's exactly what Boris Johnson pulled off. I think it's great to see Boris out on the campaign trail. I had the pleasure.
Well, he's not, to be fair, on the campaign trail. He's signing a letter. And I think supporting just imposed his signature on a bunch of letters. He's hardly putting his heft pounding the streets, which a lot of people would say could be the narrow path to victory.
And if I was in Conservative campaign headquarters, I would be asking Boris to do exactly that. I was his parliamentary private secretary in the run-up to the 2019 general election, and therefore had the pleasure of being with him on a number of events on that campaign trail. And there's a stardust. He is... And if you're going to go against somebody who does politics in Technicolor like Farage, you've got to be someone who does it in Technicolor yourself. And I think that that's kind of missing from the Conservative campaign at the moment. It's very dry, very necessarily focused on tax and the impacts of Labour on people's bank balances. But I just think that to the public it sounds like white noise after kind of years of hearing that from the same voices.
Lots of discussion about what happened in Canada when the Tories were absolutely decimated, and it was the sort of suggestions that Nigel Farage could be staging a hostile takeover whereby he gets elected in Clacton and then at some point defects and renames and regroups the Conservative Party. And I just wonder if, and this is obviously a lot of ifs in this question, but if you were to remain in the party, which you're not standing, could you work under him? Would you? I mean, there's a lot of people who've said yes. Braverman, Jenrick said yes. Badenoch, Patel and Cleverly all saying no. Where do you sit in that debate?
Personally, no, because I think that there's a big difference between what, in the Republican Party in the US, the Tea Party movement remained within. It was every bit as hostile and had every intent and has succeeded effectively in taking over the Republican Party. But fundamentally, the Tea Party was within the Republican Party and was seeking to change the Republican Party within. I think that somebody who leaves your party altogether, sets up 3 new parties over the course of the last 15, 20 years and has the avowed aim of destroying your party, you can't really bring back into the fold. I do think that the Conservative Party post-election needs to think about what it is that has driven our traditional core vote to a different party altogether. That doesn't mean tracking away to the right. It just means thinking about what is the breadth of policy that you can offer that brings back your core vote while still putting you in a position to reach out to Labour and Lib Dem voters.
Well, James, we look forward to seeing you over the weeks and months ahead. For the moment, we've got to say goodbye to you. Thank you very much indeed. Nice hearing from you. Thank you. James Heappey is former Armed Forces Minister. Port Talbot steelworkers striking today over the closure of the 2 blast furnaces. The company says this is a transition to greener methods of production. It comes as Tata Steel are looking to cut almost 2,800 jobs.
Well, let's speak to our national reporter, Theo Jacumba, who's at Port Talbot for us this morning. Good morning to you, Theo. Bring us up to date.
Yes, well, for the first time of the UK steel industry are taking industrial action, and late last night there were around 100 people here in Wales, just here in Port Talbot, and they were here regarding the offer that they've been given by Tata Steel. Now, Tata Steel said they're making losses every day, and this reason is because of that, the financial reasons, and their plans to go to a greener way of working, which does come at a cost with people losing their jobs. And this morning I'm kindly joined by Ian, who's been working in this industry for over 20 years. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. So the company say they're making losses of up to £1 million a day. What's your response to that? Because they're saying that's one of the reasons they are closing it down.
I think, we've heard for a number of years now that they're losing £1 million a day. When you look at the company financials, it's quite clear that this company is awash with money. They've got reserves of over £1 billion back in India, and it's the underinvestment since they've took us over in 2008 that have caused the situation we are in now. Our workforce give up their pensions in 2016 because this company was losing £1 million a day and to make a future for this place, and now they're just coming again to decimate the area and decimate our members.
Of course, your industrial action means that it's going to cause disruption, and is causing disruption. Are there plans to continue doing this?
Yeah, so we've obviously, when we submitted to the company, we put indefinite on that, and we will look as we go through this campaign and through this action how we escalate that. I think everything the company have tried to do to bully or threaten our members have only hardened our resolve to fight, and we will fight for the best thing for our members, for our communities and the families that are affected by this.
Now we're right on the doorstep of the town. How important is a place like this for those who start their careers here and essentially don't plan on leaving here because of the career prospects?
Yeah, so the town is built around the steelworks. You know, the steelworks is the town. There's generation after generation working here in the steelworks. There's husbands and wives, fathers and sons, and they'd all need this place to continue. And that's why we're calling for the just transition, because not just about the 2,800 jobs that Tata have announced here, it's the contractors, it's the community, it's the local businesses that all rely on this. Without this place and a proper transition, there will be no Port Talbot, there'll be no South Wales.
Thank you so much for that, Ian. So we understand 2 blast furnaces will be closing. One closing at the end of this month, the other at the end of September. Now, the government has introduced funding to help this new electric arc, which they say £500 million has been put towards that investment. But we have heard from Labour, who've asked Tata to delay closing down the blast furnaces until after the general election, which they say they will get £3 billion investment to help here and potentially not see all the thousands of jobs that will be going.
Thanks, Theo. Thank you very much indeed. Coming live there from what looks a beautiful morning at Port Talbot. But a lot of people really worried about the closure of factories such as this and what we as a country are going to do in terms of security. Who's going to make our steel? How do we make tanks for the future, airplanes for the future? All sorts of things. Who are we dependent on? Where would we bring our steel in from?
And what happens to these communities when they have a huge shock to, employment there?
Devastation.
And how does it recover from that? And, where do they find employment going forward? If it affects you, let us know.
3,000 people they're looking
It's no joke. And then all of their dependables or dependents. It's a big issue. Let us know your thoughts on that this morning, gbnews.com/.
The time at 8:15, let's bring you up to date with other stories coming into the newsroom. And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has formally ended his 6-person war cabinet. It's a cross-party group. It was set up after the attacks of October the 7th as a way of representing national unity. The move was triggered after centrist opposition leader Benny Gantz left the war cabinet last week in protest over the direction the conflict was going.
At least 11 people have died after 2 small boats carrying migrants ran into trouble off the coast of Italy yesterday. 26 children are among 60 who are still missing in what's being described as one of Italy's worst migrant disasters in 18 months.
Sir Ian McKellen was taken to hospital last night after falling off the stage during a performance of Player Kings at the Noel Coward Theatre in London. The 85-year-old is playing Falstaff and he fell off stage during a fight scene when he lost his footing. The producers have said he was in good spirits and expected to make a speedy and full recovery.
Right, it looked absolutely beautiful in South Wales. Let's find out what the weather's going to get up to where you are with Alex Deacon.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many, a fine day today. There will be a few showers around, but many places won't see them and stay dry. Also, just a little bit of rain working its way up towards Kent, so we could see some rain here for a time, particularly later this morning. A scattering of showers already across Scotland, 1 or 2 more developing through the day over northern England, perhaps Northern Ireland, maybe down into the Midlands. But I say there'll be somewhat hit and miss. Many places will stay dry, certainly across Wales and southwest England, dry and fine. And here, 21, maybe 22 degrees Celsius. Cooler further north, temperatures struggling a little bit in the teens with the breeze still coming down from the north. Now, the patchy rain across parts of Kent might just graze into parts of East Anglia, should scoot away through the afternoon. So turning brighter here to end the day. Still a few showers scattered across the Midlands, drifting south over northern England as well. Maybe the odd heavy one too. Parts of southern Scotland also susceptible to some heavy showers, but I suspect any showers over Northern Ireland fading pretty quickly. A cool feel though with that breeze across the Northern Isles. Temperatures only 10 or 11 Celsius at best through the afternoon. As we go through the evening and overnight, we should see the showers tending to fade away fairly rapidly through this evening. So some decent clear spells developing. Still a bit of a breeze, bringing a bit more cloud into East Anglia and potentially across into Kent also. But elsewhere, the wind's falling fairly light. Some mist and fog is possible. Temperatures will dip down to single figures across the north, double digits, certainly in urban areas further south to start tomorrow. And for most, tomorrow's looking like a fine day. It could start a bit cloudy over the southeast. The cloud will increase across the northwest. A bit of rain likely to trickle in here, but late in the day, again, a small chance of 1 or 2 showers, but most places will be fine tomorrow. Some lengthier spells of sunshine, feeling a bit warmer as well. The winds will be lighter and temperatures generally creeping up a little higher, more widely over 20 Celsius across the south. Goodbye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
And right now, it's time for our great giveaway and your chance to win over £16,000 worth of prizes, 15,000 of that in cash and the rest of it in bits and bobs, which you will really appreciate.
Yes, and here's how it could be yours.
Don't miss out on your chance to win our Summer Spectacular. And have we got a prize for you? First, there's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction. So you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Now, still to come, we have the royal biographer Angela Levin joining us. She's looking back at what was a historic Garter ceremony at Windsor Castle yesterday. We'll have that and all the other royal news today.
Very good. See you after this.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Campaigners from Animal Rising put a picture of the animated character Wallace from Wallace and Gromit over the King's face. They added a speech bubble with the words, "No cheese, Gromit. Look at all this cruelty on RSPCA forms." What can you say about that?
These one-issue zealots, they demean themselves and they dishonour the cause for which they say they're fighting. The only good thing about this childish episode is that the brilliant portrait of the Red King by Jonathan Yeo was not damaged in any way. They're lame brains. If they have a case to make, let them make it in a sensible, civilised way, and we might listen.
But, Michael, eyebrows will be raised, questions will be asked about the lack of security. Not a security guard in sight, not even a velvet rope. Michael Cole, this looks embarrassing for the gallery.
It's nasty, and these things, I think, are counterproductive because anybody who might be willing or open to persuasion on this will be put off by it because it's vandalism. Let's call it what it is. It's utter vandalism. It's unnecessary. We live in a democracy. If you have a case to make it in a civilized way, not in a way which alarms and threatens other people and also damages property. It's really another example of what we saw with Nigel Farage today. Somebody's going to get injured. I was with Mrs. Thatcher on the road for 5 years. Her 2 detectives, they were brilliant guys. They were great at catching eggs, you know, that you could have made an omelette by the end of the day in the battle bus because of the number of eggs they caught.
The People's Channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice.
Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Now, after the Order of the Garter went off without a hitch on Monday afternoon, royal biographer Angela Evan joins us this morning to catch up on the annual event. Angela, very nice to see you. What is the Order of the Garter?
Well, this is something that goes back 700 years. It's unbelievable, and it's all to do with Arthur and the knights around a table.
King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table.
Yes, Knights of the Round Table. It comes from there as far back as that. And it's for people who've done great things for the country. And there's lots of prime ministers in there, ex-prime ministers there this year. And it's all very sort of old-fashioned and rather lovely, as if you're in a theatre and you're watching something. All the costumes and the feathers and all that. But what absolutely fascinated me was that for the first time since 1475, that a woman has got the top notch. And her name is Baroness Eliza Manningham Buller. She used to be the boss at MI5.
Yes.
And she was given everything first that was going on in the world before even anyone understood in Parliament. So she's absolutely a brilliant woman. And she was there till 2002, I think. And she's now got this wonderful title, Chancellor of the Order of the Garter. But I think it's really good that a woman can actually get that top title, because I think, especially with the royal family, lots of men there, usually they were priests and things like that, but now it's spreading out, and I thought that she was a marvellous sample of that.
I'm just surprised there even was a woman in 1475 who got the post.
No, she didn't. That's right. That's since 1475. There's never been a woman there. She's the first one to get this top post.
Yeah.
And I thought she's absolutely fascinating. She's done so much to stop wars and to pass on information and all that.
Well, nice to see her being utilised in such a way.
Yes, absolutely.
Angela, busy time for the royals. The King looking fit and out and about again. We saw him, of course, at trooping on Saturday alongside his daughter-in-law, the Princess of Wales, who was fabulous to see her back. And it's a busy period for the royals. Even though there's an election going on and they're trying to pare it back, they're still very busy.
It's really, really very busy. I mean, King Charles, I don't know quite how he's managing, because he still is having his treatment and he's just working very hard. But I also feel very much about Prince William, about how amazing he has been, because you could see the occasional gesture on Saturday for trooping the colours, when he would put his arm round Catherine and make sure she was all right, especially on the balcony, because I think once she nearly wobbled a bit, and he was there for her straight away. But, you know, you wouldn't notice that on his face. And I think what he's done, you know, with no sign of resentment or passing on his feelings to anyone, he's gone with such dignity. If you just look at it, it was D-Day, footballers, trooping the colour, Order of the Garter and Ascot. And he's been there and he's worked incredibly hard. Nobody would have known anything had happened in his life.
Astride a horse, no less.
Yes, I hope he's dry by now. He got soaking wet.
I know.
And he's just done, I think we're very lucky to have an heir to the throne like that, who is dutiful, loves his family, and he still takes all the children to school in the morning. And you can't really hope for anything more than that, can you? And he's behaved with such dignity. He must be so worried about his father and his lovely wife, and his lovely father, won't miss out the lovely. You know, thank goodness we have somebody like that.
Yeah. It was interesting to see Prince Edward with a prominent role as well. He was aboard a horse.
Yes.
As well.
Prince Andrew taught him how to get better at riding. You know, he hasn't got a role within the family, but actually he was asked to do that because he's not very good at riding. And I think that's nice. You know, I think he can be doing that sort of thing without anybody feeling that it's not appropriate.
Well, I wonder what the royals are going to do if the next generation of people aren't armed forces, if they don't join the army or the navy or the air force or whatever.
This is very interesting because Prince William doesn't necessarily want little George to do that. He doesn't feel it's necessary. But it's such a stamp on the royal family, isn't it? And with all the costumes, and they're the head of the army. And so what would they do without that? I find that very difficult. I think it's the same with religion, actually, because he's not religious, William. He does go once or twice a year, but he hasn't got the same passion about religion that King Charles does. And I think it's very difficult. I think it'll be maybe a very changed royal family.
Indeed, yeah. Well, interesting. And we don't know yet who's going to be attending Royal Ascot, but we suspect at the very least the Queen, probably the King and Queen, and maybe even the Prince of Wales as well.
You can't keep the Queen away from horses. I mean, she absolutely loves them. She used to ride them non-stop when she was little. And fascinatingly, her mother never bothered about it because they weren't mobiles then. And she would go off riding for hours and sleep in a field.
What an incredible
childhood. And then come back the next day. She never worried about her. She thought she was sensible. And your mouth opens, you think, good heavens, you know, thank goodness for the mobile today. But she loves horses and she's got a very nice knack with them. You know, I've seen her just stroke them and they sort of, you know, they have a lovely time. She loves animals, dogs and horses. That's one of the things she had very much in common with the late Queen.
Yes, yeah, and there she is at Ascot last year. Well, we hope to see them, I'm sure we will, in the next few days. And lovely to see you. Angela Levin, thanks very much.
Thanks, Angela. Thank you very much. We've got Paul. He's got the sports news, a bit of a roundup there for you right after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In North Yorkshire, the A64 is blocked eastbound off junction 44 of the A1M at Hazelwood, causing queues. In Warwickshire, the A46 is partly blocked each way by an accident at Snitterfield, with queues each way towards there. In Suffolk, the A12 is partly blocked northbound by an accident just before the A14 Copdock interchange at Ipswich, causing 2 miles of queues. On the M25 from Essex into Hertfordshire, there are long anti-clockwise delays from junction 27 for the M11 past 25 for the A10 because of roadworks. On the M25 in Kent, there's a lane closed clockwise with an accident just before junction 5 for the M26, causing queues. There are queues on the M26 approaching the M25. Train services are suspended between Cardiff Queen Street and Rumney after a freight train broke down. And in Dorset, the A338 is closed eastbound along Wessex Way west of Bournemouth after an accident causing delays. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do. His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, and unlike you. That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frothy in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
We would go through the sport, but...
Paul just dropped it.
Paul Coit's just pulled his ear out. What did you do yourself?
Well, there was like an ear, the earpiece, and I've just gone to put it in, and then I heard a snap noise.
Well, we'll tell you when to shut up, OK?
OK, usually do. Yeah. That's enough. That's enough. Can you just, just to keep it subtle, can you just go like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without breaking your nose.
Yes, sir.
Kylian Mbappe last night. So France, they beat Austria 1-0.
Yep.
And
Austria are a good side, by the way.
Well, I was about to say...
Ralf Rangnick is the manager.
Yeah?
Manchester United are manager.
Yeah.
I know he wasn't great there, but he plays a pressing football. You know, when I say a pressing football, not oppressing football, but a very exciting style. So, that, you know, he's the manager, so they're no slouches, Austria.
Well, so tell me how he had a part in the goal, but what's going on here with his nose?
Right, so this was in the second half. He goes up to head the ball and he catches Danso, who's a 6'3" defender, who's one of the shorter defenders, actually, one of the shorter players that plays for Austria. It was nose and shoulder that collided. It's often head and nose, but it was nose and shoulder that collided. And he fell to the ground and it was like, oh, so the nose did not look good. Got up, and then he fell to the ground again. He was given a yellow card for simulating. It's like, you know, what's he doing? You're wasting time. But he's not wasting time. The guy's broken his nose, so then had to come off. Didier Deschamps, who's the manager of France, was asked about it. Didn't say too much, but he said he's not doing well. So it looks like he's gone to hospital. And then, is he going to be all right for the rest of the Euros? Does a broken nose put you out? Maybe not. Does it mean the mask across the face? I don't know, but it's a nasty break.
It means headers aren't really an option, doesn't it? You know,
absolutely. So
we wish him well.
We do. I mean, he's arguably the finest footballer in the world, so it wouldn't be right to have the tournament without him, but does that help England in the long run? I don't know, I'm looking too far forward. But anyway,
Belgium, always a useful team, some great players there. What have you got to tell me about them?
Well, there's no Hazard, Witsel, Courtois, Alderweireld. They've had the golden generation, which I think is the biggest waste of a great footballing side that they never won anything. They've still got De Bruyne, Lukaku, Doku, Trossard, but they played Slovakia, who are 48th in the FIFA rankings, and Slovakia won. So they scored really early. Belgium scored 2 goals that were disallowed. Now, one of the Lukaku goals was disallowed for handball, and they used the snickometer.
What's a snickometer?
The snickometer they use in cricket. So, you know, when you see the ball go past the bat and then it's the sound. The sound, so then you see the little sound. So this is what they're doing because they've got a chip in the ball. Yeah. And to show that actually Lukaku did touch it with his hand, so the snick goes like that. Yeah. So therefore handball was given, which meant the goal was disallowed. So it's a win for Slovakia. So not a good start for Belgium at all.
No, not at all.
Huge surprise. Romania beat Ukraine, their biggest result ever in the Euros, and they won 3-0. So Romania, very, very tasty yesterday.
OK.
It's not a good result for Ukraine. Tonight, or today, Turkey versus Georgia, and Portugal versus, not Czech Republic, Czechia.
I fancy Portugal.
Yeah, very
I
good.
do. I think Portugal, there'll be very few teams better than Portugal, I think.
Yeah, of course. But they've got Cristiano Ronaldo, who's actually older than we are.
Is that right?
Actually playing, yeah.
Johnson Wagner.
Yep. Yeah, we'll tell you about Johnson Wagner. Johnson Wagner is a golf pro, and he's a golf expert on the TV in America. Now, what he does is that he talks about the golf, and then he goes out with a golf club, and then we'll play the winning shot after the game's finished. Now, the US Open, we know about Rory. He choked. He's gone home. So Bryson DeChambeau won the US Opener. So have a look at this. This is Johnson Wagner then. I'm
out here, 55-something yards. I got a 50 degree. This sand is so perfect here. So we're going to see if we can't
pull this off. It's pretty dark out here, but I got the Jumbotron lighting me up, and man, that clubhouse is looking at me, Randall.
When they're eating dinner or what?
Oh, sit. Sit. Oh! How about this?
Let's take this.
Okay, I'll take it. There we go. Okay, so I just saw you
Well, there you go. All that's done live after the tournament finishes.
But then what happens is that he goes to play the shot again.
Yeah.
Bryson is there, and then he goes, OK, and then he plays a better shot than Bryson did, and then Bryson hands him the cup. So it was all very nice. But we didn't see that. It was all very lovely.
That's it.
Now, the Premier League fixtures, by the way, out at 9 o'clock, so I'll have some for you.
Well, you'll be back after 9?
Yes, as soon as they're released.
And remember, United, Spurs.
Yep, and
then
Spurs
United, yeah.
And everything else will
OK, that's all we need to know.
OK.
Thank you very much indeed.
Right, stay with us. Lots more to talk about with Claire Muldoon and Alex Armstrong. They'll be back with Making the News after this short break.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The new BBC Director of Sport, who's a man called Alex K. Jelski, who's downplayed fears raised by sports women about biological men competing in female categories. And he's also called Martina Navratilova, I've got to say, has to be probably the most successful woman tennis player in history, and a very brave woman too. She escaped the Iron Curtain and she came out. And Sharon Davis, he says, are not experts on the issue.
At the same time, transgender US swimmer Leah Thomas has lost her legal battle and been told that she cannot compete at the Olympics.
So Leah Thomas made an appeal to World Aquatics, who have this rule in place that says that they protect the female category, as does athletics and world cycling. And because Leah doesn't actually qualify, because Leah isn't training, so she's not even someone that would be potentially part of the Olympic team. They've just said that, you know, you don't qualify to be able to bring this case. It's been thrown out on a technicality, thank goodness, and which means that, you know, swimming will not have any males beating elite females in Paris this summer, which was particularly good for me, bearing in mind that I now have to be very careful about what I'm allowed to say and not say. We're not allowed to use the words biological male, transitioned male. I mean, just every single possible way that we could explain that the person in the race wasn't a female, and it only affects women. It doesn't affect men. You know, females that identify as male are no risk to men's sport in any shape or form. It's just women that are losing their opportunities. The thing I take the most offence to, and this is very serious, and this needs to be dealt with by the BBC, and this is why I wrote to Tim Davie. In that article, he compared males that are identifying as women in women's sport to Jamaican and Ethiopian females being allowed to compete.
What?
The People's Channel.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We welcome back Claire Muldoon and Alex Armstrong. Always a pleasure, guys. Never a chore. And we're going to talk about tea first of all, Claire.
We are.
And this is in the Times.
We are, and I think this is quite right, because I was at a wonderful wine tasting the other evening when the influx of French champagne houses buying up English countryside from Hampshire, Berkshire. English sparkling wine is apparently the new thing. So if we can take the method to make champagne by growing the grapes, because our terroir, as it's renowned, as it's named, is specific for growing wonderful grapes for champagne, then that's fine. let the French have their tea. Because we have got Indian tea, Chinese tea, green tea, white tea, every kind of tea. It's a great, great story. And I'm quite, French, well, let them do what they want. They speak funny and all this nonsense. No, I'm joking, obviously. Bien sûr, etc., etc. So if they want to grow, if they want to have their tea, they can have their tea and drink it.
Well, nothing beats a Yorkshire tea. That is my thing. Yorkshire tea every day. It's the best tea. It's the best tea. French will never get
I love
close
a
to it.
Earl Grey. The French think they can make tea.
But it's got nothing to do with Yorkshire. That tea.
Possibly not, actually. I don't know,
It's actually better. It's to do with the water. I think that's what makes a great cup of tea. Really good, soft Scottish water.
There you go.
I'm sure I'm OK with the French rediscovering their love of tea. No, I love France and I love French wine and all the rest of it, but tea is a British thing.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Isabel.
Some things are just not cricket. Let's talk about sports and politics. We've been talking about Kylian Mbappe and all the drama, his nose and all of that. But he is anti the NRP, the National Rally Party, which is the new party being headed up by Marine Le Pen in France. And she's looking strong in the snap election that Macron has called. He obviously isn't standing himself.
Correct.
But he, as a football star, is weighing in on this sort of, the election, frankly.
That's right. So, yes, he's come out and said that he wants to be proud to represent France. And what he means by that is to not vote for what he would call extremist parties. He's saying he wouldn't be comfortable representing France with parties like Marine Le Pen's in power. Also, interestingly, Thierry Henry has come out, and obviously a former football player, famous former football player, has come out and said something similar as well. So we're starting to see now, as this election gears up, the big celebrities come out on the sides of who they're going to endorse. It hasn't, obviously, as far as we know, shifted any polls. Mbappe is quite popular with young people, so that's perhaps where they're aiming for, because during the European elections, we had 17% of young people under the age of 25 voting for right-wing parties. So perhaps that's where the angle is here. But, there's a big question of whether people like football players and celebrities getting involved in politics.
Well, we were talking about this yesterday and in America and how we'd just seen George Clooney and Julia Roberts alongside Obama and Biden trying to raise money for the Democrats. And you were saying it doesn't happen in this country because it instantly alienates 50% of your audience. But
Absolutely.
It seems to be a trend overseas.
It does. It seems to be far more popular to endorse political candidates. Maybe it's something to do with our parliamentary system, the fact we have a monarchy, and that there's maybe this little bit of hesitancy to endorse candidates. I think we are starting to see that happen more and more globally, where celebrities are getting involved in politics. Obviously, Trump is a celebrity himself, so maybe it's just becoming more normalised.
Yeah. Let's talk. No, not because I've talked to you enough, Alex. No, we're going to talk to Claire. What do you want to talk about, Claire?
Let's go for Starmer saying he wants votes at 16. I'm sorry, but that's just ridiculous. 16-year-olds don't know, if we're led to believe, what sexuality they want to be sometimes, let alone which party they want to vote for.
Well, there would be a motive to his madness, wouldn't there?
Of course there is, because he believes that if, like a la Scotland, if the vote was reduced to 16-year-olds, then they are more in favour of the left-of-centre view. They think, yes, all for one and all for one and one for all. It's that kind of camaraderie. Do you think there's a huge difference between 16 and 18 in terms of, legally you can have sex, you can get married, blah, 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 at 16. Yeah, and at 18, are you suddenly worldly and wise enough to cast a vote that you weren't at 16? I just wonder, to be honest, I actually think it should be raised. I think the age should be older. I think we're in this perpetual state of childhood pretty much until early 20s, where most people are... It's getting worse. Yeah, I agree. It really is. With, unfortunately, lots of people having to stay and live at home. And I just think, reducing the age, is that... Do you know what the other danger is in all of this? Social media and their ability to infiltrate subsequently into the terms of events and into people's minds about the way they should be voting. Logarithms, AI, deep fakes. It's really, really interesting the way it's going to go, and it's horrible, really.
What also concerns me is that now we're talking about votes at 16. That means you're going to get politicians canvassing kids at the age of 15 years old. Yeah. You will see that happening, and I think that's quite worrying. But on the counter-argument to this, Keir Starmer is also going to bring in new legislation that bans energy drinks up to the age of 16. So the day before they can vote, vote, they're not allowed to go and buy an energy drink without ID. It's all a little
but
bit
is it
odd.
Also a little bit rich, because this is an exclusive interview that Rishi Sunak's given to the Mail, where he's questioning why Keir wants to do this, because he wants to entrench power. But then Rishi Sunak's going after the grey vote, a lot of people have been saying, and trying to buy votes by, you know, talking about triple lock or quadruple lock on pensions.
They're going to try
so they're just doing whatever it will take
exactly,
to get them back into power.
Absolutely, exactly.
Yeah, OK. At woke museums, Alex, the University of Oxford is hiding an African mask because the culture which created it forbids women from seeing it. It's on the front of the Telegraph.
Yes.
Tell me more.
Yes, so woke museums. I mean, look, so this is the kind of ridiculous stuff that happens in the 21st century in 2024, which is now that there's trigger warnings being put, not just in museums, when they're sort of hiding things they think might be culturally insensitive that may have some historical purpose to them. But they're even putting trigger warnings on their online website to say this might upset you by looking at it. I mean, for goodness sake, it's a mask.
Yeah.
It's a mask. It has massive historical part of the Igbo culture, and some masquerade rituals carried out by men wearing ceremonial object masks, male only, and secretly kept away from female spectators. So it doesn't seem to be anything too dubious about it, but they're saying this is part of a decolonisation process, and this is the Pitt Rivers Museum, which is aiming to address its collection closely tied to British imperial expansion.
Almost as bad as the headlines over the weekend of Liverpool University have been, which is a Russell Group university, the academics have been told when they're teaching history to decolonise it, to work around the problematisation of whiteness and heterosexuality. I mean, come on.
It's got to stop. I mean, it's
it really does.
Ridiculous.
It's absolutely getting ridiculous.
And who really wants I don't know if anybody I speak to or anyone that I know in politics or surrounding me that thinks these things are good for society.
Well, quite often you find them in universities.
Well, that's true, and that's really quite scary, though, isn't it? Because these are the people teaching our young people, and rather than giving them an objective opinion about it, we're saying, no, we're going to hide it from you, tell you it's bad, and you will believe it's bad on that basis.
Look, I'm all for teaching through different lenses, like feminism through the eyes of Judith Butler, which I think is a horrendous feminist philosopher, however. But, you know, you need to be able to understand some different points of view in order to make your own.
We shouldn't be frightened of causing offence in the name of education.
Exactly.
You have to expect everything and be grown up.
Where do you stand, Claire, on dramatisations? You know, portraying Queen Elizabeth I as a black woman.
But she wasn't.
Yeah, and there's a lot of women, I mean, things like Bridgerton and whatever, women seen in authority and having money and having power, which they would not have had in reality.
I remember, I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking about you, actually, because I remember we had the conversation about Belfast, the film.
Well,
remember?
Yeah, full of...
And you turned round and said to your old mate...
Black people and Indian people and whatever.
There were no corner shops.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it didn't exist, it wasn't there.
And Kenneth Branagh's words back to you were?
He said, I won't get the funding if I don't actual cast.
Yeah.
It's worrying, isn't it? Because it's rewriting parts of history that people will watch and believe. I think that if it's fictional drama, I don't care. I don't care. If it's fictional, I don't care.
Yeah.
But if it's historical drama, there's something to be said about keeping accuracy.
But Alex, is there a way that we can redress things? Should we have said, you know, as a black person or Chinese person or whatever, you would never have seen anyone from your culture in these positions, but we could, in a sympathetic way, redress that today? Do we have a duty to do that?
Well, sure, but you know, there's plenty of dramas about people from those cultures coming to the UK, about the natural culture in the place of, like, we go to China, for example, go to India, tell those stories. We don't need to rewrite
Look at the dynasties
history,
in China.
You know? Yeah, there's great shows
you wouldn't
about
have a white British man play Emperor Ming from the Ming Dynasty.
I watched a great Netflix show on the Chinese dynasties. There wasn't a single white person in it because it was about China.
And it didn't make you ask and question yourself, did it?
It was better that there were no white people in it, because I would have been questioning why they were there in the first place during the Mongol invasion, you know? So, you know, any person, any educated person is going to sit there and go, well, actually, that's just nonsense.
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
Forced.
Absolutely.
Just finally, Claire, the England football fans sinking 2 months' worth of beer
in one weekend in Germany.
Weekend.
Did you watch the England game?
I did, yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
It was a slog, but it was an effective win. Yeah.
You see football. Apart from the fact that Scotland, I will support Scotland, right? But if England are playing, I will support England.
Yeah.
You're the only Scot that I know that does that.
Well, I'm the only Scot that's.
I think there are more than you think.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that own goal, that Scottish own goal, or the German own goal that got the goal for Scotland. The amount of money that these guys get paid, why they're not getting 5-5-2, 5-6-5 in the results. It's ridiculous. They've got one job, guys. They've got one job.
I love
and
that.
They can't even get it in the back of that net.
I love that about Iceland. I'm sure Iceland is still a part-time team made up of amateurs, and they always do way better. They beat us one year, and you've got people on the pitch worth hundreds of millions.
They should be playing with a real ball as well. Those balls are far too light.
Yeah, you can say
you know?
that.
Yeah. We should have played a lot better against Serbia. I mean,
it's early days.
It's early days. But we were favourites to win. We've been bookies' favourites to win. We should be 3-0.
It must be Gareth Southgate's fault.
Yeah,
absolutely. Guys, thank you very much indeed.
You're very
listen
welcome.
to you and talk to you, Claire and Alex. We'll see you again next week. Thank you.
See you later.
Meanwhile, here's the weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many, a fine day today. There will be a few showers around, but many places won't see them and stay dry. Also, just a little bit of rain working its way up towards Kent, so we could see some rain here for a time, particularly later this morning. A scattering of showers already across Scotland, and one or two more developing through the day over northern England, perhaps Northern Ireland, maybe down into the Midlands. But I say there'll be somewhat hit and miss. Many places will stay dry, certainly across Wales and southwest England, dry and fine. And here 21, maybe 22 degrees Celsius. Cooler further north, temperatures struggling a little bit in the teens with the breeze still coming down from the north. Now the patchy rain across parts of Kent might just graze into parts of East Anglia, should scoot away through the afternoon. So turning brighter here to end the day. Still a few showers scattered across the Midlands, drifting south over northern England as well. Maybe the odd heavy one too. Parts of southern Scotland also susceptible to some heavy showers, but I suspect any showers over Northern Ireland fading pretty quickly. A cool feel though with that breeze across the Northern Isles. Temperatures only 10 or 11 Celsius at best through the afternoon. As we go through the evening and overnight, we should see the showers tending to fade away fairly rapidly through this evening. So some decent clear spells developing. Still a bit of a breeze, bringing a bit more cloud into East Anglia and potentially across into Kent also. But elsewhere, the wind's falling fairly light. Some mist and fog is possible. Temperatures will dip down to single figures across the north, double digits, certainly in urban areas further south to start tomorrow. And for most, tomorrow's looking like a fine day. It could start a bit cloudy over the southeast. The cloud will increase across the northwest. A bit of rain likely to trickle in here, but late in the day, again, a small chance of one or two showers, but most places will be fine tomorrow. Some lengthier spells of sunshine, feeling a bit warmer as well. The winds will be lighter and temperatures generally creeping up a little higher, more widely over 20 Celsius across the south. Goodbye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In North Yorkshire, the A64 is blocked eastbound by an accident between junction 44 of the A1M and Tadcaster, causing queues. In Warwickshire, the A46 is partly blocked each way by an accident at Snitterfield, with queues back beyond Bishopton. In Suffolk, the A14 is blocked westbound just after junction 46 at Thurston, with queues from junction 47 at Woolpit, and the A12 is partly blocked northbound by an accident just before the A14 at the Copdock interchange at Ipswich, causing 3 miles of queues. On the M25 from Essex into Hertfordshire, along anti-clockwise delays from junction 27 for the M11 past 25 for the A10 because of roadworks. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. Train services are suspended between Cardiff Queen Street and Rumney after a freight train broke down. And in Dorset, the A338's closed eastbound west of Bournemouth after an accident causing queues. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
There's still time to win our Summer Spectacular with an incredible trio of treats, and you could win them. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, the 18th of June, and it is 9 o'clock on the dot. You're tuned into Breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
A very good morning to you. Hope it turns out to be a good day. The news we are bringing you in this half hour, as they continue to slide in the polls, the Conservatives are turning to Boris Johnson to fight the threat that's coming from Reform and Nigel Farage.
Labour pledges to bring banking back to the high street with a promise of 350 banking hubs over 5 years. We'll be speaking to the Shadow Secretary of State for Business and Trade, Jonathan Reynolds, in just a moment.
Royal Ascot, it begins today. It's racing's glitziest festival. More than 250,000 racegoers expected during the week.
And in the sport, well, the Euros may be on, but the fixtures for the new Premier League season have just been released. We'll go through some of the best of those in just a second.
Finally, some signs of summer. Not particularly warm today, but most places dry and bright. We will see a few showers, especially across the north. Many places seeing sunny spells tomorrow as well, and temperatures just ticking up a little this week. Join me later for a full forecast.
We're going to kick off the half hour, literally kick off with the football fixtures, the Premier League fixtures. Paul alluded to them there. What can you tell us? Who gets it underway? They surely have to pick the biggest, the best team, the most bankable team.
Yes, Fulham, correct. Yeah, it's Fulham. Fulham are away to Manchester United. So, yeah, first game of the season, Friday the 16th of August. So they kick it off on a Friday, which they do every season, to Manchester United at Old Trafford, home to Fulham.
I think I will go up that night. That's good.
Yeah.
Just go up and stay. It's so hard to stay overnight in Manchester, but you can't get a train back because there is none. There's no airplanes as well.
Yeah.
So you'd have to drive back if it was me, or you stay up.
Do what the other fella did that we showed earlier.
Just fall asleep.
Sleep in the stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah, just sleep in there. That could be the answer in the Theatre of Dreams.
OK, so it's United Fulham.
Right, yes.
Gets it all underway.
Right, got a few of the other interested ones. How about these? Opening weekend, Ipswich. Look at that. Newly promoted Ipswich are at home to Liverpool. What a great start that's going to be for them.
I remember when that was just a classic fixture. I mean, incredible. You know, going back to where, the 80s?
Absolutely, early 80s.
Yeah.
There we are. Southampton, also newly promoted. Back again, they're away at St James's Park playing Newcastle. Leicester will be at home to Tottenham Hotspur. That's on the Monday. So there's all the newly promoted sides. How about this one for an opening weekend game?
Wow.
Chelsea versus Manchester City. That's on the opening weekend as well. We've got a few other bits and pieces as well. How about a few derbies that we've spotted? Manchester United versus Liverpool, 31st of August. We've got Spurs.
That's an early one.
It is an early one. Spurs, Arsenal there at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on the 14th of September. These are very early on in the season. Everton, Liverpool, first Merseyside derby of the season is going to be at Goodison Road. That's 7th of December. And how about that one? First and second from last season, Manchester City versus Arsenal on the 21st of September. And the big ones that obviously we're looking out for is the Paul and Eamonn derbies.
Right.
So Manchester United against Tottenham Hotspur. Let's see. Well, we better keep our diary clear. So Manchester United versus Spurs at Old Trafford, 28th of September.
Okay.
We good for that?
We're good for that.
We're good for that. And there's the return at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Spurs v Manchester United. The day after Valentine's Day, 15th of February. They're all subject to change apart from around the
Might
TV.
be a Valentine's Day massacre.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. So, who knows which way that's going to go.
That's good, that's good. Those dates in the diary.
All very good. All very good.
Thanks very much indeed. We may come back to you and just update some more stuff. Sure. But for the moment, thank you very much indeed for that.
Right, let's crack on with some politics. We're joined by the Shadow Secretary of State for Business and Trade, Jonathan Reynolds. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us from Westminster. I want to get straight into some discussion about council tax, because, as you know, Wes Streeting said over the weekend that the manifesto is not the sum total of spending plans, which lots of people read to mean that there is a back door being left open to tax rises. Jonathan Ashworth has refused to rule out changes to and revaluing council taxes. Can you confirm that?
Yeah, I can. And look, let me just say on this, we've made some really specific arguments in our manifestos where we would get more revenue for public services. That's all very clear in those plans, and we've made that commitment on national insurance, VAT, income tax, the big taxes. But look, taxes are at a high level in the UK. They're at a 70-year high, and the truth is there is no level of any tax rise that would give people the public services they want if the economy did not improve. If we have an economy that grows as it has done for the last 14 years, it makes things very difficult. You get this doom loop that we've got where taxes are high but public services aren't good. So the big argument in the Labour manifesto are practical things that will make the difference, make the economy grow more strongly, an alternative to the chaos and stagnation of the last 14 years. And that's got to be what we're talking about. Or we're going to be in this conversation about decline and stagnation. There is a better way. The economy has grown better in the past. People have felt the benefits of that. And that's the big argument Labour's making at this election.
The economy doesn't grow. We will see taxes rise. And I'm interested to hear that you have said that absolutely you're ruling out a rise in council tax, because Rachel Reeves has refused to do that, and so is Darren Jones, who's Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury. So somebody's telling us a different story there. Who to believe? I suppose people will decide that Rachel Reeves is the person they trust, given that she'll be Chancellor. Will it be inheritance tax, though? Because I know that a former aide, or indeed a current aide of Sir Keir Starmer, liked a tweet saying that this was a sensible levy to increase.
No, look, the argument we're making is we are going to grow the economy, and that is going to give people the living standards. If the economy had grown in the last 14 years, even remotely like it did under the last Labour government, there would be billions of pounds of money being spent on public services today without any increase in those headline rates of tax. So let's not talk about decline, stagnation, the chaos we've seen for 14 years. Let's look for something better. The practical measures in Labour's manifesto, whether that is economic stability to not repeat that disgrace of a situation we saw with Liz Truss, whether it is having an industrial strategy or reforming planning so we're building homes, changes to the apprenticeship levy so more money is going into skills and training. These are the practical things that make a difference, and this is what our argument is what the focus has got to be. And there is a better alternative. I know people have had a tough time for the last 14 years, and some people will say, can it really even get better? But the answer is yes. It has been better in the past. It can be better in future. And that's the only realistic prospectus in the medium to long term to give people the kind of services and public living standards that they reasonably expect.
And one of those services and standards could be banks in the high street, and bringing banks back to the high street. I understand the aspiration, Jonathan, but I don't really understand how you, as a government, if you were a government, could actually make that happen or enforce it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we want to see more of are called banking hubs. This is where you have all the banks coming together to provide a physical premise on the high street where all their different customers can access banking services. So it's not looking to the past. It accepts that banking has changed. People do it in different ways, online, for instance, and so on. But it's still really important. If you're a small business and you need to deposit cash, that's a really important service. And what we're going to do is change the regulations, change the voluntary approach. There's only about 30 of these hubs in existence at the minute. Change who's entitled to one, so you're not getting these deserts in high streets where there's no access to financial services, and deliver therefore. I think it's a good deal for the banks as well, because
well, it has to be a good deal for them, hasn't it? Otherwise, why would they do it? Would you just finding it hard to understand how you can actually say to one of the big banks, right, open up in the high street, open up one of these hubs? What would be in it for them? Why wouldn't they be doing that now?
Well, what's in it for them is that by sharing the costs of that premise, that's obviously a much lower cost to them than their individual bank branches. And what you see a lot of at the minute is banks exiting high streets. They don't want to be the last bank left on the high street because they think that will put them into a position where they won't be able to be under undue pressure to keep that bank branch open. By coming together, delivering it in that way, it reflects how things have changed, but it keeps that essential service in there. And of course, high streets and town centres are changing, but they're still a really important part of people's local economy, their sense of identity in a place. We've got to do more to make sure they're vibrant places, centres of civic life, and access to financial services and banking services is a really important part of that.
Talking to me a minute ago about looking to the manifesto about ways in which you want to turn things around, and you believe that improving relations with the EU, closer ties with our European partners is one way of doing it. But I'm interested, not when it comes to private school fees. You want to add, of course, VAT to private school fees of 20%. That's illegal under EU law because they believe that taxing education is not in the public interest. It's not a progressive policy, is it?
Yeah, I think it is. It's a pragmatic way, a necessary way of getting more resource into state education, which is obviously a priority. I mean, the key argument here is, of course, private school fees themselves have increased well above the rate of inflation in the last few years by an amount greater than the amount we would put on by charging VAT. Obviously, the vast majority of people in the UK are educated in the state sector. Those fees, by the way, don't have to be passed on. Those costs don't have to be passed on to pupils there. But we need to get more resource into the state education system for the quality of education and also for the benefit of the economy overall. And this is just a practical way, a reasonable way, I think, to do that.
Will there be any exemptions to this? Because I noticed Jonathan Ashworth has declined to comment on whether military families, who, of course, as we know, rely on private schools, boarding schools very often in order to serve our country, will they get any exemption from this huge hike? 20%. You talk about, inflationary hikes. Nothing in the realms of 20% like you're talking about.
No, I believe we said there'll be an exemption for people who are on an education and healthcare plan if they've got special educational needs. But again, look, schools don't have to pass these costs on. They could cut their cloth accordingly. Obviously, state schools have been under a lot of real terms financial pressure in the last few years, so it can be done. It's had to be done in the state sector. But the money we'll raise with this, over £1 billion, will go into making sure there's more specialist teachers in the state sector, additional support for mental health in those state schools, and also provide the provision of breakfast clubs. So look, it raises revenue, it vastly improves quality of life and education for the majority of families across every bit of the UK, and it's a practical way to deliver a tangible injection of real resource and capacity into the state sector as soon as possible, which is what we need.
I want to ask you about the living wage. There was lots of discussion about this yesterday, and HSBC has come out and expressed concern about this today, saying that where you impose this, you see increasing costs for businesses, reducing efficiency, which often leads to reducing headcount, or you see it sustaining lingering inflation, which means interest rates are high. So we could be in a situation with an increased living wage where we have higher mortgage rates and increased unemployment. According to HSBC, not me.
Well, I want wages to be higher. I want wages to be higher. I'll make no apology for that. I don't want what we've seen in this Parliament, which is people are worse off at the end of it than they were at the beginning. We have not put an arbitrary figure on the timescale or the rate that wage should be. We have said over time we want the process of setting the living wage to be one that reflects the costs people face that makes it over time a real living wage. We will do that in a way which is reasonable, proportionate. But I want people to earn more money. I've absolutely no reservation in saying that. But of course, the overall platform we're putting forward is a good one for businesses. It will address issues from the apprenticeship levy to business rates, to consistency, to tax certainty. So it's a pro-business agenda from Labour, but it's a pro-worker one as well. We want people to be better off.
Jonathan Reynolds, thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you. Thanks for your time.
I'm interested to know always what everybody at home thinks about these interviews. Let us know, gbnews.com/your say. Are you convinced? Are they, when their big sort of economy push this week, persuading you? Would you like to see banking hubs? Or do you think, as you were saying, it could actually be pretty unpopular with the banks? Let us know your thoughts this morning.
gbnews.com/have your say. So, earn more, take home more. You know, you tell us how they would go about that, what you want to see. You could always enter our Great British Giveaway because you could win over 16 grand.
Yes, 15 grand in cash and a whole host of treats. Here's how.
Don't miss out on your chance to win our Summer Spectacular. And have we got a prize for you? First, there's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your Summer Spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction. So you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Have a good day entering that. Or you could be going to Royal Ascot. We'll be telling you all about what's going on there next as we come from it live.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
What about the elections? Because it seems that the King and everything is moving because of it, and we've got a lot of royal engagements and things that happen at this time.
Yes, well, you know, it means that he has to take more time and be at home. He can't go to all the things he wants to do. He's been doing 5 a day, which is probably made Camilla a bit cross. But what they still hope is that they can get the Japanese Emperor and Empress over. That's in July. That they can go to France for the 80th anniversary of the fighting. And he will be able to do 1 or 2 things. And Ascot he's very keen to do. Now, those aren't things that are political in any way. I just want to talk about Harry and Charles's argument, where Harry said he didn't want to stay, he wanted to go to a hotel. And it's come out now that actually King Charles, it's believed that he was put into, as offered St James's, and Princess Anne stays there, and Beatrice stays there.
And this was for when Harry came over
when
for
he
his
came
10th
over, yeah,
anniversary
exactly.
for
And the policemen are wandering around with guns, and there's no chance of actually there being any problem there. So the fact that he said that it wasn't safe for him was not actually a very sensible thing to say, I don't think.
Well, he went to Nigeria, and that is, in the world ranking, it's ranked as quite a dangerous place.
Yes, one of the dangerous places in the world. But now Harry and Meghan have been invited to go to Ghana.
Oh, God. Well, it's interesting because my parents are from Ghana. I have Ghanaian heritage, and I'm thinking she'll probably then claim there's a percentage that she's Ghanaian as well. I'll be like, hang on a minute, you were Maltese, you're also Nigerian,
And
now you're going to say you're Ghanaian and German.
Yeah.
Come on. Thank you very much.
Squeeze it in.
Yeah, let's get them all in. Angela Levin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The People's Channel.
Ascot, the annual racing event, gets underway today, but who is expected to attend?
Yes, could horse riding enthusiast Queen Camilla be making an appearance, or indeed even King Charles? Let's find out from none other than our royal correspondent, suitably decked out in all the gear, Cameron Walker, looking splendid, joining us from Ascot. Good to see you, Cameron.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Yes, it is the first day of Royal Ascot's 2024. I've got the official Day 1 programme in my hand, listing the 7 races taking place today. Apologies, there's a bit of an announcement going on, doing some tests, of course, ready for all the guests to arrive. Now, the King and Queen, other members of the royal family, are expected to be here this week. Buckingham Palace not confirming exactly what day, but we do know that the King and Queen have a number of horses racing throughout the week, and they'll be very much hoping for a win similar to last year with Desert Hero, who won the King George V Stakes. If you remember those fabulous images of the King and Queen inside the royal box, probably forgot they were on camera, just kind of screaming at this horse to win, which it eventually did. It was such a lovely moment because that horse was bred by Queen Elizabeth II, and throughout her reign, she attended Ascot all of her reign up until 2020 when the pandemic stopped her, and then obviously her health stopped her as well. But she had more than 20 wins during her time as monarch, and the King, as I said, has a number of horses racing. Earlier I spoke to Nick Smith, the Royal Ascot's Director of Racing and Public Affairs. He told me why there's such tradition when it comes to Royal Ascot, as well as how much the King and Queen enjoy their time here.
The current King is the 13th monarch to oversee Ascot Racecourse. Started by Queen Anne in 1711. Major historical milestones along the way. The royal procession came into effect in 1825, so we will be celebrating next year a 200th anniversary of the royal procession. That was under George IV. And of course the late Queen was a passionate supporter of racing, and we're just delighted to see the King and Queen enjoying the sport and having runners here.
£10 million worth of prizes up for grabs for the winning horses. On Thursday, the King's got Gilded Water riding. We've also got Treasure, Crown Estate, Hard to Resist. And Water is predicted to be the favourite because it's got the same trainer and jockey that Desert Hero did last year. Of course, we are expecting other members of the royal family to be here as well. Next year, the royal procession, the carriage procession, celebrates its 200th anniversary, as Nick just said. So it's going to be a very exciting week of racing, particularly if the weather stays like this.
Thank you very much, Cameron. Looks a great day. Enjoy it. Thank you. Britain's newsroom shortly, but just to take into account things that you've been saying today, we talked about woke museums, and Dawn is saying, how come anybody can do anything to British history, but woe betide you if you try and do it with any other country's history? We're talking about a mask that shouldn't be looked upon by women.
I'm giggling, sorry, because Andrew and Bev are waiting in the wings to talk about what's coming up on that programme, and they've only one stool between them.
We're sharing.
Well, it's a good job. We've got small behinds.
Quite. 2 small bottoms on 1 chair here.
So what have you got for us?
Well, we've got... what are we talking about this morning? We're going to be doing a bit more from Ascot. Can you tell we're a bit...
Well,
Andrew's just run through the door now this morning.
I'm going to Ascot on Saturday. I'm rather looking forward to it, actually.
Yes, that should be
Top hat and tails and all that.
Oh,
we're talking to Help Heroes about our veterans the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Are they really getting a good deal from any of the political parties in the manifesto?
Yeah.
It's quite an interesting story.
And
is
Brexit
safe?
Brexit safe, absolutely. And should you go on holiday with no health insurance? Should you take the risk? There's this story of this British man who's in Turkey, and he couldn't get health insurance, and now he's out there with a £50,000 bill.
And they won't let him out.
Yeah, so people are booking the holidays at the moment, thinking maybe I can manage without my health insurance. We're going to be talking to Simon Calder about that.
Andrew, run that past me again. So this man's not well, and they won't what? The authorities?
The hospitals are saying you can't leave the hospital until you pay half the bill. No, so he's trapped in hospital.
Now, imagine if we did that.
Yeah, I know.
Imagine that. I mean, there's a hospital across the road here that it just runs. There's no one that speaks English in it. All the patients in and out, whatever. And I just find it a big coincidence that nobody speaks English, or are they all from abroad, or they all dear enough available.
It's just extraordinary. The family are now trying to raise money to get Dad out because they need the bill is about £44,000 and rising. They've got to get half, and they're trying to crowdfund for Dad.
We're also going to be talking to a woman who wants to talk about emergency first aid for mental health in the workplace. About what that means, what that would look like, what signs you should look out for from your colleagues. Any help they might need.
Do you know, that makes me think about Roman Kemp, you know, the DJ, because his producer was out for dinner with him one night, and the next day he killed himself.
His own life.
And Paul Roman's never got over it. And they were dear friends. Are there signs that we're all able to look out for, especially in young men?
Exactly.
It's that particular.
Who won't talk about their emotions.
No, they won't. Absolutely.
Well, it sounds like you've got lots coming up.
How are we reflecting, of course, on the big moment for reform yesterday on their manifesto?
Yeah, and what does that mean?
Bit of an ambitious wish list, isn't it, to put it mildly?
There was a lot I liked about it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I can't lie, there was a lot I liked about it.
He would be the first to admit, Nigel, it is not costed. But it is a wish list because they know they can't formulate a selection.
And does it matter? I suppose that's the question. If he doesn't think he's going to get nip out, does it matter? Or does it? Does it actually mean that you're creating dissatisfaction because you're actually offering something that's undeliverable?
And the problem is, I think the big problem with this election is so many people feel disenfranchised with all the main political parties, and they don't believe anything they say.
Yeah, and we've got the Scottish Labour Party manifesto as well.
Woohoo, that's exciting.
OK,
all right,
guys,
lots coming our way.
Thank you very much indeed. On the subject of getting the vote at 16, Beyonce says, if I was allowed to vote at 16 and a party promised to halve the price of skateboards, they get my vote. What a joke, 16-year-olds getting the vote. Well, let us know what you think. Thanks for letting us know so many things today and for being with us. Hopefully sometime between 6 and 9:24 as it is now. We'll be back tomorrow from 6 a.m.
Here's the forecast. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many, a fine day today. There will be a few showers around, but many places won't see them and stay dry. Also, just a little bit of rain working its way up towards Kent, so we could see some rain here for a time, particularly later this morning. A scattering of showers already across Scotland, one or two more developing through the day over northern England, perhaps Northern Ireland, maybe down into the Midlands. But I say they'll be somewhat hit and miss. Many places will stay dry, certainly across Wales and southwest England, dry and fine. And here, 21, maybe 22 degrees Celsius. Cooler further north, temperatures struggling a little bit in the teens with the breeze still coming down from the north. Now, the patchy rain across parts of Kent might just graze into parts of East Anglia, should scoot away through the afternoon. So turning brighter here to end the day. Still a few showers scattered across the Midlands, drifting south over northern England as well. Maybe the odd heavy one too. Parts of southern Scotland also susceptible to some heavy showers, but I suspect any showers over Northern Ireland fading pretty quickly. A cool feel though